Chapter 237. Where are these stones that you mentioned? Gustav asked with a look of interest. Oh, follow me. I'll show you, Guara replied while standing up. They moved out of the small structure and headed for different corners of the area. After about 10 minutes had gone by, Gustav had about 10 orange-colored, pinky-sized stones in his possession. They had a particular glowing dot at their center. They were so smooth that grabbing hold of them to uproot them from the walls was not an easy task. The Arcanades even had to break a piece of walls in some areas just to remove the stones. Gustav proceeded to keep the grand stones within his storage device and stared at the path ahead, leading to a passageway behind this area. You guys said the Embark made a deal with you all to ruffle up anyone who approached this area and stop them from getting the stones for your sentence here to be reduced? Gustav asked for confirmation. Guara and the others behind nodded in confirmation. Then, how long is your sentence? Gustav asked. Well, we've been here for about 20 years already, so we still got around 20 to 30. Ugh, I'm bad with calculations, Aura. Guara called out to his second in command, who was the second biggest after him. My lord, we have been here for 30 years, and we have only 5 years left, Aura replied. We've been here for that long? Wait, we only have 5 years left? Then why the hell didn't you stop me from accepting those bastards' proposal? What gain would we get from helping them hold back those youngsters? Guara voiced out with a tone of annoyance. My lord, we did tell yo. Guara interrupted Aura before he could complete his statement. Shut up, you idiots! I'm the only one speaking my L. Death glare. Aura quickly kept quiet the instant he noticed Guara's glare from the front. What exactly did y'all do to get a 35-year sentence? Gustav was quite surprised that they had been here for that long and hadn't lost their sanity. It had been about 3 hours since he arrived here with the others, and he was already starting to feel weird. He couldn't imagine staying underground without being able to leave for up to a year. Despite that, these bunch had been here for 30 years already. Haha, well, we tried stealing something of great importance to your planet. Guara laughed lightly as he explained. If we had succeeded, we could have sold it to another planet and lived the rest of our lives in wealth and prosperity. However, us succeeding would have left your planet defenseless, giving other planets the opportunity of finally launching an attack against your planet. Without that thing, the chances of other planets successfully invading the Earth would be increased. Haha, we're lucky we didn't get the life imprisonment sentence, Guara explained and concluded with another light laughter. I wonder what that thing is. With that level of importance, they should truly have been imprisoned for longer since their success would have jeopardized the entire Earth. I wonder why they received a lighter punishment, Gustav wondered, forgetting that just a while ago, he mentioned that their sentence was too high. Guara seemed to have guessed what Gustav was thinking about and proceeded to say, Those bastards look down on us. They knew we never stood a chance, so they're giving us such a small sentence knowing that we're harmless, and even if we tried it again, we wouldn't succeed. Gustav could sense the annoyance in his tone when speaking. He could already tell that he was referring to the MBO. I see, so 5 more years. Gustav figured that they must have learned the human language before coming to Earth for their operation. How did you guys manage to live for 30 years underneath this hole without losing your sanity? Gustav asked. Haha, as long as I have my subordinates, I can stay in this hole for up to 100 years. Guara replied with a burst of light laughter. Companions, eh? Gustav said internally while giving a low sigh. Our sentence is nothing compared to those who have been doomed to spend eternity in this hole due to their heinous crimes, Guara said with a depressed look. It was nice chatting with y'all. I'm leaving now, Gustav said while turning around to leave. Hold on, great subparallel being, Guara called out to Gustav, who responded by turning around to listen. You have to be careful out there. As you're leaving our territory, you'll be meeting some other inmates who have been here longer than we have. Some of them have already lost their minds. So, even though they have been given the offer to ruffle you, youngsters, up and prevent you from securing more stones for their sentences to be reduced, due to their twisted minds, they will attack with the intention to kill, Guara warned. Gustav didn't need to be told this. He already knew that he'd be encountering crazy folks here and was prepared for it. Good thing the MBO did not plant cameras everywhere. I might finally be able to go all out, for reasons unknown. Gustav could feel a rush of excitement from within when thinking about this. Although the Arcanades were truly stronger than he was, physically, they had no idea that he had multiple bloodlines. Gustav suddenly remembered something Guara had just mentioned. Did you say territories? Yes, this is the Arcanades' territory, and we would fight a bitter battle to the death with any other species that tried to trespass. Other creatures here also have their territories, which I am sure are places you need to visit to get more of those stones, Guara explained. After leaving here, you'll arrive in the territory of another. There are also many passageways that lead to different places that are inhabited, so finding the places where the stones are kept without a map might get you lost, Guara added. A map, true. Gustav's face shone realization as he remembered that a backpack had been strapped to his back all this time. I didn't even remember to check, Gustav said internally as he unhooked the bag from his back. Chapter 238. A map, true. Gustav's face shone realization as he remembered that he had a backpack strapped to his back all this time. I didn't even remember to check, Gustav said internally as he unhooked the bag from his back. He opened up the backpack and checked the contents within. There were fast foods that could be eaten on the go. Some night kit to make a campfire. Also, a makeshift cube that had a retractable house inside. Gustav could see some more materials for survival inside, which made him surprised since he didn't expect the MBO to do this. After a few seconds more of checking, he finally noticed a small, pocket-sized device underneath, strapped to the left side of the backpack. Gustav grabbed hold of it and took it out of the bag. Tap. Troyan. A holographic map of the underground ruins was revealed right before his eyes. He could see the route that led back to the stairways that brought them here. He could also see passageways that connected to one another, leading to every place underground. The only problem was that the locations weren't marked. Can you mark out the territories of these creatures you mentioned? Gustav asked Guara. About 30 minutes later, Gustav was traveling through another passageway. He had a small, maniacal smile on his face as he stared at the device in his hand. The device displayed a map that had red spots in different areas. Only Gustav understood what the red spots meant. The next one should be right behind this passageway, Gustav said internally. I'm going to gather as many as I can before the day runs out. After that, the next step will be to find a good place to rest for the night, Gustav decided internally. Arcanades had told him they would have come with him if not for the fact that their sentences might be increased if they assist him. Even if their sentences were not increased, Gustav would still have preferred that they didn't follow him all around. But he did promise that when they were out, he would find a way to repay their help. So, this might not be the last time that they will be meeting. Gustav was still surprised that these inmates had made territories for themselves underneath the Caskia ruins. The participants were mostly put in a tight spot because they had to look out for mixed breeds, aliens and mixed bloods. The likes of which might no longer be sane. Swoosh! Gustav dashed out of the passageway and arrived in an area with hundreds of icicle-like rocks buried into the ground. The icicle-like rocks were pointing towards the ceiling, but they weren't tall enough to reach there. Surprisingly, when Gustav looked up, hundreds of feet above, a large creature was sleeping on the pointed tips of these icicle-like rocks. It looked like a round ball covered in greenish fur, but if one looked closely, one would see small legs and two heads protruding from the top and bottom of the creature. However, its heads and legs were not easily noticed compared to its massive size and ball-like shape. Host has made contact with a Calapasol, that must be it. It's also an alien. Maybe I could get the grandstones without waking it, Gustav said internally and activated Sprint along with Silent Steps. Sprint has been activated, Silent Steps have been activated, swoosh. Gustav silently darted across the place, going from corner to search for grandstones. The walls in this area were coated with icicle-like fragments. Looking from afar, it was like they were clothed by the thin fabric of icicle-like fragments. After searching for several minutes, Gustav still hadn't found anything. Since he was making use of sprint, he was almost at his fastest, so he had checked every part of the walls in these areas more than 15 times. Still, he found nothing. Could they have been mistaken? Gustav wondered but immediately banished the thought. Screw all. The creature above made a loud sound which was a bit similar to snoring, and flipped over to the side. Gustav raised his head up to stare at it. It had been lying on its back the entire time, so due to its size, it was covering a large portion of the ceiling from Gustav's point of view. However, the moment it flipped to the side, Gustav saw the part of the ceiling that had been blocked. On that part, small, shiny orange objects were embedded into it. So, that's where they were all this time. The MBO is pretty cunning. They must have known where the creature likes to sleep. So, they put it in a place where you'd wake the creature if you tried taking it. Gustav smirked while analyzing. He stared at the icicle-like rock in front of him and traced it to its tip. Every icicle-like rock around him happened to be among the ones the large creature was currently sleeping on. Gustav moved to the far edge of the space and found an icicle-like rock that wasn't connected to the body of the creature above. It looked thin from afar, but it was the size of 2 human adults' bodies on a closer look. Only the top was pointed. Clasp! Gustav grabbed hold of it and tried climbing. However, his hands slipped the moment he tried to pull himself up. GGRHHH. GGGRHH. Both Gustav's arms instantly enlarged in size, and dark red fur covered them as long sharp claws protruded out of the tip of his fingers. Pryoik! Pryoik! Both Gustav's claws dug into the icicle-like rock, and he started climbing. Pryoik! 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 Small sounds were made each time his claws pierced the icicle-like rock. This made him move slower than normal because he didn't want to wake the creature. After about a minute, Gustav was finally close to reaching the tip of the icicle-like rock. From his position, he could see the body of the large creature, which happened to be facing Gustav's direction. It was only about 15 feet away because its body covered a large portion of the tip of the icicle-like rocks. Gustav's claws pierced into a part of the icicle-like rock that was only 3 feet away from the tip, and pulled himself up with force. Swoosh! His body traveled upwards with speed. Then, in midair, his right foot landed on the tip of the icicle-like rock. Gustav smirked as he stood on the icicle-like rock with one leg and looked around the place. Flicker! Flicker! Gustav heard the flickering sounds and stared at the creature ahead. Swoon! The creature opened its 4 small green eyes and stared in the direction of Gustav with animosity. Sigh! I thought I was silent enough, Gustav said internally while staring back into the eyes of the huge creature. He figured, his claws piercing into the icicle-like rock repeatedly had slowly brought the creature out of its slumber. Guarula! The creature made a weird noise as it flipped its body over on the tip of the icicle-like rocks. Oh well, I still want to find out if I can take on the ability of aliens. So, this might not be so bad after all, Gustav said internally as he prepared to engage the creature. Chapter 239. He figured that his claws piercing into the icicle-like rock repeatedly had slowly brought the creature out of its slumber. Guarula! The creature made a weird noise as it flipped its body over on the tip of the icicle-like rocks. Oh well, I still want to find out if I can take on the ability of aliens. So, this might not be so bad after all, Gustav said internally as he prepared to engage the creature. Guara! Gub! It's been long since I tasted flesh. So you're finished, Earthling? Although the creature was still making that weird sound, Gustav could understand it clearly. Looks like the system will interpret every alien language to me no matter where they come from, Gustav thought. Fwum! The massive circular creature suddenly leaped up and curled itself into a perfect circle where its head and legs couldn't be seen. It suddenly descended upon Gustav's location with speed. Obviously, it was trying to crush him with its body. Gustav practically had nowhere to run to since they were in midair, and he was currently standing on the top of a pointy rock with just 1 foot. The next rock in front was a few feet away, and so were the rest. Because of the way they were spaced and the size of the creature's body, he would need to move to the other end of the area in less than 2 seconds. However, it was currently impossible for him. Gustav turned towards the side and leaped towards the wall about 50 feet away from his left. Thwum! Tush! The instant his feet touched the wall, he pushed himself upwards with force. Thump! Gustav's body ascended with speed, but due to that action, the body of the creature missed him by a hairbreadth. Bang! The creature landed its body on the area where Gustav was a while ago. However, his body was so large that part of it was even touching the wall that Gustav had just used to push himself upwards. Gustav landed on the body of the creature and used its bounciness to catapult himself upwards again. Thump! It was like rubber, so it was quite easy for Gustav to reach the ceiling area of the area. Gustav arched his arm back, punched the ceiling area with force. Bang! Crumble! 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 Pieces of rock started falling from the ceiling area after Gustav landed a massive hit on the ceiling. Grab! 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 While falling through the air, Gustav reached out his hand with super speed multiple times and grabbed onto 4 grand stones falling along with him. The creature below hadn't been expecting this action. It was unable to attack Gustav immediately after landing because of the rocks falling from the ceiling area. Although they were unable to harm it, Gustav had broken the surface of the ceiling with his fist. The resultant effect was a cloud of powder-like dust that disturbed the vision of the creature. Gustav quickly kept the stones as he landed on the tip of another icicle-like rock a few feet from the front of the creature. 6 more to go. Gustav stared at the ceiling area on the east and could see some more grand stones embedded into its surface. Krrgh. Gustav's body started swelling as he transformed. The creature in front still had a poor vision of the environment due to the dust particles still floating in the air. Still, it could pinpoint Gustav's particular direction. However, it didn't attack him immediately when he sensed the energy his body exuded, but the moment the dust cleared up. Swoosh! It noticed that Gustav had already appeared at its front, looking extremely menacing due to his transformation with his fist outstretched. Boom! Gustav's right fist slammed into the body of the creature, but surprisingly, something else happened. Thrun! Gustav's fist sank into the body of the creature and bounced back. Just as I thought, that's why it's able to sleep on the pointed tips of these rocks without suffering any issues, Gustav said internally before jumping backwards. Thump! As his body traveled backwards through the air, the large creature also leaped forward. Even with its body mass, it arrived in front of Gustav instantly. Bam! Its massive body collided with that of Gustav, sending him flying towards the far end of the space. Bang! Gustav's back slammed hard into the wall. Still, as he was traveling backwards earlier, the creature didn't let up and was already following him. The moment he slammed into the wall, the creature had arrived in front of him again, using its massive body to cover Gustav's entire line of sight. Thump! Gustav pushed himself forward quickly and arrived in front of the creature's body with his arms outstretched. He grabbed onto the body of the fast-moving creature and used it to push himself further upwards. Swun! Gustav's body scaled over it due to that, dodging the creature, who still kept traveling forward with full force. Bang! It ended up slamming into the wall. As Gustav landed on the tip of another icicle-like rock in front, he raised his right arm, which was coated in silver-like energy, including the long, sharp claws. Sprint has been activated. Gustav leaped from tip to tip, unafraid of the height or falling to the ground, which happened to be 100 feet below. Swun! Before the creature could reposition itself, Gustav had already leaped forward and arrived in its front almost in an instant. Slash has been activated. Slash! Gustav's claws slashed out with intensity towards the body of the creature. The creature, who hadn't balanced itself, felt a sense of crisis, and something unexpected happened next. Shhhhrkkkkh. Diamond-like coverings suddenly appeared across its body like scales. Clank! The instant Gustav's claws collided with it, they got bounced back. What? Gustav noticed that the hard covering that appeared on its body was similar to the icicle-like rocks protruding from the ground. It also looked similar to the layer of diamond-like silk covering the walls of this particular area. Not even atomic disintegration could pierce through. Huh! Gustav suddenly felt movement from behind him just as he was about to slash at the body of the creature again. Chapter 240. Not even atomic disintegration could pierce through. Huh! Gustav suddenly felt movement from behind him just as he was about to slash the body of the creature again. The movement of whatever was behind him was so fast that the instant he turned, it was already a few feet away from him. Thwoosh! The large icicle-like rock behind him had been uprooted from the ground and launched towards him. Gustav's senses had warned him of danger, but it was almost too late. Swoosh! Gustav moved to the side as fast as he could, but the large, pointy rock still stabbed into his left side. Prioic! 600 HP, due to its large size, it couldn't penetrate thoroughly, so it ended up cutting a large chunk of his left ribs away. Splurt! Splurt! Blood jetted out of Gustav's side as he landed on the next icicle-like rock towards the side. He stared at the creature, who had turned its body to face Gustav's direction with one of the icicle-like rocks floating in front of it. Ugh! Gustav placed his palm on his left side, causing a loud spurting sound to ring out. His palm was drenched in blood instantly. I was careless. I need to be on the ground since it can control these rocks. Immediately this thought came to his mind, Gustav leaped down. Swoosh! Bam! He landed on the ground in a few seconds, causing more blood to spurt out of his injury, coating the ground. Gustav could feel the pain, but he wasn't focused on it. He didn't let it hinder his movement in any way, and even though it stung, he bore the pain. The large opening that was torn through his body on his left rib area was slowly starting to close up. Gustav stared at the creature who happened to be staring at him back from up. The large icicle-like rock was still floating in front of it, and pointing towards Gustav's direction from above. Swoon! 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 Suddenly the icicle-like rocks all around the vicinity started being uprooted from the ground by an invisible force. While that was happening, Gustav's entire body was also transforming. Black scales covered his chest and back area. This was a feature he got from the serpentine mixed breed. The tusks that had grown out of his thighs suddenly wrapped around his legs, transforming into some kind of protective covering. His skin turned sizzling hot, affecting the temperature around him. 10 invisible energy orbs filled with energy had merged into the space around him without the awareness of the creature. He looked extremely menacing right now. As the icicle-like rocks in the area arose from the ground and pointed towards him in midair, a purplish beam was also gathering in his mouth, which was wide open. Thwish! Thumb! He shot out the purplish beam at the same time the icicle-like rocks were hurled towards him. Zawunwin! The beam traveled with faster speed than the hurling rocks and slammed into the body of the creature. Bang! It got pushed back and slammed into the ceiling. Swoosh! At the same time it made contact, Gustav was already dashing across the ground, dodging the descent of the icicle-like rocks. Bam! 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 They started slamming into the ground, missing Gustav's figure as he dashed across the place. Swerve! 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 Gustav perfectly dodged every icicle-like rock. He dodged up to 20 of the icicle-like rocks, which had a length of over 1,000 feet. Combination has been activated, dash plus sprint, swoosh. Gustav's speed suddenly increased immensely as he dashed towards the icicle-like rocks that had protruded into the ground. Bang! 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 He clawed and punched at them, repeatedly shattering them in the process. Bang! 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 Atomic corrosion has been activated. Gustav activated one of the new skills he got when atomic disintegration got to Zulu rank. Any rock his fist encountered will slowly start to disintegrate into powder-like particles. Even though he wasn't able to blast them to pieces after punching them, They would later be disintegrated into nothing since he had made contact with them. The creature reorganized itself after slamming into the ceiling due to Gustav's beam. Even though it wasn't injured, it was still shaken up because the force was immense. It quickly controlled another pair of icicle-like rocks and sent them hurtling towards Gustav again. It couldn't go down to meet Gustav due to its massive body since the icicles were in the way. Gustav calculated the trajectory of the falling icicle-like rocks and squatted lightly. The muscles in his legs and thighs bulged immensely, and the ground below cracked a little from the way his feet pressed against the ground. Super jump has been activated. Thumb. Gustav leaped upwards in a diagonal format and kicked the first icicle-like rock he came into contact with. Swish. 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 Using that force, he traveled from rock to rock in a zigzag-like format while moving upwards. Thumb. Due to the extremely fast speed, the creature was taken by surprise when it saw Gustav appear in its line of sight. There it is, Gustav said internally as his body ascended towards the head area of the creature that was slightly buried into its large body. The creature was unable to react in time before Gustav landed on its head area. Clench. Gustav grabbed onto the head and pulled it out of the body forcefully before throwing his leg at the closed-up mouth of the creature. Bam! The creature made a loud, painful noise as its mouth opened up and started calling back the icicle-like rocks. However, Gustav's next action surprised it. Troyan! 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 About 10 blue, glowing spherical orbs appeared around Gustav. Before the creature could understand what was going on, the orbs flew into its wide-open mouth. Swoon! Gustav jumped back down the instant the orbs went in. He nicely dodged the icicle-like rocks that were flying back up as he said a word in his mind. Detonate! Chapter 241. Gustav jumped back down the instant the orbs went into the mouth of the large creature. He effortlessly dodged the icicle-like rocks that were sent flying back as a certain word formed in his mind. Detonate! Immediately after the thought came to his mind, the energy inside the orbs within the creature's body went haywire. Instantly, it was accompanied by the sound of a compressed but loud blast. Boom! The creature's body bloated immensely, and its skin cracked as light rays escaped from different parts of its body before it blasted apart. Plush! 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 Blood came pouring down like a waterfall as pieces of the creature's flesh were sent flying in all directions. As Gustav landed on the ground, a wave of the creature's blood poured down upon him, dyeing his entire figure in a green-colored liquid. Gustav quickly swerved towards the right, dodging a massive chunk of flesh that landed in his initial position. Plop! It was a continuous shower of blood for about 30 seconds. Gustav couldn't even raise his head to look up until the shower of blood was over. After it was done pouring, Gustav looked up and saw some pieces of flesh being held up by the tip of icicle-like rocks in different parts of the vicinity. The icicle-like rocks in the vicinity had now become scanty because of the destruction during the battle. However, some of them were still standing. Plop! The head of the creature rolled off from the tip of one of the icicle-like rocks and fell 7 feet in front of Gustav. Its mouth was still wide open, but its eyes had popped out of their sockets. Even with the massive size of its body, the Kilopistol's head was only half Gustav's height. Underscore 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 underscore. You have killed the Kilopistol. Plus 100,000 EXP. Goal completed. Defeat an alien life form. Plus 20,000 credits. Underscore 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 underscore. So many rewards for defeating this alien. Gustav stared at the system notifications as he walked towards the head of the creature. He understood why the rewards were so high. After all, this was the first time he fought a creature that put him in such a tough spot like this. His left ribs area still had a hole due to the successful sneak attack of the creature. Although, it had almost healed up completely. Gustav arrived in front of the head and squatted. He reached out his hand towards it. Let's see if this will work. Gustav's hand made contact with a particular spot on the head. Contact with Kilopisol's corpse has been made. New system category created. Alien lifeforms. If host wishes to take the form of the Kilopisol, several body parts need to be gathered. Gustav retracted his hand after seeing the system notification and started dashing across the place. He picked up as many body parts as he could and placed them beside the head. He did this severally until he gathered a pile of body parts half the height of a person. Gustav placed the creature's head on the pile of body parts, retracted his hand and made contact again. Contact with Kilopisol's corpse has been made. Does host wish to add form of Kilopisol to the newly created category Alien Lifeforms? Yes/no. Gustav smiled as he saw the system notification. Yes. Underscore 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 underscore. In other parts of the underground ruins, every group formed had faced one foe or another while traveling from one place to another. Most had faced mixed breeds since the place was practically overrun by them. At every turn or area, there would always be mixed breeds. Sometimes the mixed breeds moved in groups while others had territories where they stayed together. During the 5 hours that they had spent in here, a group was nearly wiped out due to running into a pack of mixed breeds. Luckily for them, these mixed breeds were the territorial types. Once the group managed to escape the range they considered their territory, they were safe. However, they had noticed that a person from their group was missing. Since they had almost lost their lives a while ago, the group was not willing to go back and face the mixed breeds again. So, they ignored that and easily forgot about the person. Since the group was created randomly, they had no emotional attachment to one another, making it easier for them not to feel remorseful. Back in that territory, a silhouette phased through the wall while holding onto the decapitated head of a young girl. The girl had brown-colored hair and was obviously a beauty, but her eyes were extremely wide. Looking at the facial expression of the decapitated head, it was obvious that she went through something horrifying before her death. Slurp. Slurp. Slurping sounds reverberated across the vicinity. The silhouette lifted the head that was still dripping with fresh blood towards its mouth area. Thanks for the meal, Slurp. It voiced out as a wide opening appeared in the middle of its face. A wide set of white canine-like teeth was displayed. Each of its teeth was the length of an adult's palm. It pushed half of the head into its wide-open mouth before closing it heavily. Crunch! In an instant, the head was bitten into 2 halves, and blood along with brain matter squirted across the place. Ah, delicious! The creature muttered before munching away. Underscore 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 underscore. A few kilometers away from the barricade covering the surroundings, a bungalow-sized facility could be seen outside the underground ruins. It didn't look anything special, but officers clothed in sets of dignified-looking uniforms could be seen surrounding it, armed with advanced weaponry. From time to time, convoys would arrive carrying a set of people who would get down and approach the building. Within the building, the internal structure was entirely different from what could be seen outside. Not only was it larger in size, but it also looked structurally advanced in every way. A rectangular table could be seen in the middle where a group of dignified-looking people sat around. Rays of light converged above the table, forming different holographic images that displayed several spots in the underground ruins. Are you sure we can't see any deeper than this? Chapter 242. Rays of light converged above the table, forming different holographic images that displayed several spots in the underground ruins. There were about 14 of them sitting around the table, and more empty seats were still around them due to the large size of the table. A familiar figure was among them. Are you sure we can't see any deeper than this? One of them asked from the side. No, sire! The energy waves are more saturated in this environment, causing the disruption of transmission from the hidden cams. The man that had just spoken had a contemplative expression upon hearing the information the AI passed. Looks like we won't be able to see that kid's battle, he muttered. Great Commander Cheyenne, shouldn't we be more worried about the insatiable silhouette? A feminine voice was heard from the other end of the table. From what we have seen, a participant had fallen by his hand. How many more will fall? Another masculine voice questioned. Are you guys saying it should have been sealed? Yet another voice different from the others was heard again. That situation can only be handled if they work together. If they can't work together, then they don't belong in the MBO. While people around the table were voicing out their opinions, an officer knocked and came in from the door behind. Sir Young Joe has arrived, he announced, and behind him, a young man in a purple business suit walked in. Within the underground ruins, almost 10 hours had gone by. It was already evening time, and the participants knew they'd have to turn in for the night. So, they began to look for places where they would be safe for the night. At this point in time, several groups had noticed that one or two of their teammates went missing when they were battling some mixed breeds. This became alarming when several groups met up and found out that they went through something similar. Several groups started sticking together due to this. However, this occurrence was only taking place in the southeastern part of the ruins. Groups in other parts hadn't faced this situation. Some had come in contact with inmates that they had to battle. In contrast, some had come into contact with inmates that didn't initialize violence upon noticing them. All in all, no one had lost their lives according to what the groups had seen. However, no one knew the fate of the missing participants. In a particular place in the southeastern part of the ruins, a girl with silver and pink-colored hair, with an innocent and beautiful look leading a group. Her athletic figure, along with her tight clothing highlighted her hips and front busts, made her look especially attractive. Among the rest of the group here, she seemed to stand out than others. Angie, which passageway should we pick? A short boy with long white dreadlocks covering his face asked from the side. Obviously, the girl was Angie. She happened to have formed a group of 7 with these participants after arriving in the ruins. The rest listened to her and practically saw her as the leader of the group because her opinions had brought them this far. Also, the way she used her ability when dealing with the mixed breeds they came into contact with garnered their respect. They were currently in a wide space filled with short 2-foot-long pointy rocks protruding from the ground. Right in front of them were 4 large passageways. By now, the participants knew about the map. However, since there were no marked spots that gave them a clue on what to expect from different locations, they were only using the map so they could find their way back in case anything happened. Angie checked the map and looked for the passageway that led to the northwest area of the ruins. She stared at the 3rd passageway, which happened to be the one, and gestured for everyone to go in. The rest nodded and followed her into the 3rd passageway. So far, we have each gotten 2 stones. We should move to another part to find more stones. This was Angie's thought and reason for picking this passageway. When the group had disappeared into the dimly lit passageway, a slurping sound reverberated across the area they had just left. Slurp. 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 A silhouette phased out of one of the rocks and stared in the direction of the 3rd passageway. Hee, more fresh and delicious meat, it muttered while moving towards the 3rd passageway. In the eastern part of the ruins, within a large passageway, a bloodbath was ongoing. Slash. Slash. Pryoic. Pryoic. Sounds of battle and blood being sprayed could be heard within. Gustav was currently engaging a group of mixed breeds with spider-like features but human-looking heads. Plop! Another of the creature's legs was severed, causing it to fall as Gustav spun around and slammed his right foot into the creature's face with the spinning force. Bang! His feet were currently massive due to him transforming them to that of a bloodwolf's. His legs slammed into the head of the creature, causing it to dislodge. It was sent flying and slammed into the wall on the other side before bursting apart. Gustav didn't wait for a second more. He had already dashed towards another one and was currently pulling its head from its body. You have killed a level 5 Oslyra Arachnids mixed breed, 10,000 EXP. You have killed a level 5 Oslyra Arachnids mixed breed, 10,000 EXP. System notifications kept ringing in Gustav's head as he massacred the mixed breeds attacking him. After about 5 minutes more, the entire passageway was littered with piles of mixed breed corpses. Gustav walked forward, stepping on a pile of corpses and a river of blood that he spilled. Crunch! He stepped on a corpse's head as he walked forward, which burst into pieces. Even though the environment was nauseating and was filled with a stench of death, his unbothered expression didn't change. He came out of the passageway and arrived in another vicinity where small structures made from stones could be seen. Finally, a place to rest for the night, Gustav thought as he walked further forward. Chapter 243. He came out of the passageway and arrived in another vicinity where small structures made from the stones could be seen. Finally, a place to rest for the night, Gustav thought as he walked forward. This area was the territory of the mixed breeds he had just slaughtered. There were still a few of them on the inside, but he dealt with them quickly since they were weaker than the ones he had just faced. After he was done, he picked up all the corpses and took them to the passageway, placing all of them together. He thought of using atomic disintegration to make them vanish, but he changed his mind. Any creature that wanders to this area will think twice before coming in once they see the stack of corpses. This was Gustav's thought process, as he left them there and went back in. The small structures over here were big enough to size a fully grown human. So Gustav picked one of them on the side and went in. System interface. Gustav internally called for the system interface to open up. Host attributes, skills and abilities, bloodlines, quests, shop, goals, bloodline information, alien lifeforms, just as mentioned by the system earlier when Gustav finished battling the Galapagos. Another tab had been created where he was able to store alien forms. Alien lifeforms. Gustav decided to check on the information regarding the first one he took. Alien lifeforms, Galapagos, an alien species from the planet Kilantopia with an elastic outer membrane and the ability to harden the surface of its skin with an element it creates internally called Iros silk. It can also create objects and structure from the element it uses to harden the surface of its skin. Gustav stared at the information and noted it. As it turned out, he'd also be able to transform into this alien if he willed. This was another hidden source of power he added to his arsenal now. The only thing he wasn't clear about was whether he could level up the power of the alien lifeforms after acquiring them. He closed the alien lifeforms window and proceeded to open the shop window. Shop, credits, 59,100 bloodline items, bloodline recipes, bloodlines, skills, abilities, training manuals. Gustav stared at the number of credits he had accumulated and smirked. Originally, it was around 19,000 he had saved from hunting down mixed breeds within the border. Nevertheless, during the test phases, he had managed to accumulate 40,000 more, bringing everything to a total of 59,000. I can finally buy a bloodline from the system now. A surge of excitement ran through Gustav's body as he thought of this. He had only gotten techniques from the system since he had been accumulating credits, since the number of credits needed for getting a bloodline was quite exorbitant. Gustav recalled when the second time he got a technique was around 6 weeks ago. 6 weeks back after the closing periods, Maltida found her way to the disciplinary committee's block and headed for Mr. Lan's office. Calm. Calm. She knocked softly and a masculine voice responded from within. Come in. SHHHSSHH. The door slid towards the side and she proceeded to walk in. Right in front was an office table with a middle-aged-looking man sitting behind it. Files were stacked on the table and a holographic monitor along with a keyboard was positioned in front of him. He was initially busy with typing something, but he took a pause when Maltida stepped in. Good day, Mr. Lan, you called for me, Maltida said respectfully. Called for you? Mr. Lan stared at her with a confused expression. I didn't, he denied. Mr. Lan, the student who was sent to deliver the message specifically said you wanted me to see you in your office. What? I didn't send any student on such an errand, Mr. Lan exclaimed. Then how come, Mr. Lan? Or you don't want to admit that you called for me in your secluded office? Maltida voiced out once again. Girl, I did not. Mr. Lan was about to voice out again when he sniffed something. What's that smell? He questioned with a repressed look. What smell, Mr. Lan? Maltida asked with a confused expression. Smells like. Before Mr. Lon could complete his sentence, Maltida interrupted. Is this your way of getting out of your current predicament, Mr. Lon? Why did you call me here? Maltida asked again with a suspicious look on her face. What are you talking about? There's a strange SME. Mr. Lon couldn't complete his statement because suddenly felt a wave of drowsiness. Mr. Lon was trying to hold his breath so as not to inhale whatever was in the air since he sensed that it was the reason for his drowsiness. However, Maltida kept engaging him, throwing accusations back and forth which made him keep talking. Mr. Lon, are you trying to do something to me? Maltida voiced out with a look of fright after noticing that Mr. Lon stood up. No, it's the smell. Mr. Lon had to answer again, causing him to inhale more of the strange smell in the office. Just. Mr. Lon's eyes rolled to the back as he fell and slammed his head on the table before sliding to the floor. Maltida's expression that was initially that of fear changed to normal as she walked towards Mr. Lon's table. TCHWW. She sneezed and two small circular objects fell out of her nose. The smell in the air was already disappearing. You can come in now, he's unconscious. Maltida voiced out. SHHHSSHH. The door slid to the side and a youngster with dirty blonde hair walked with an unbothered expression. He looked around while walking forward. Maltida was already holding Mr. Lon's unconscious body up. Such foul air. The youngster, who was obviously Gustav, muttered. But it's already cleared. Maltida responded with a contemplative expression. Yeah, but so long as I remain in the same room with that creature, the air will keep on being soiled. Gustav voiced out before spitting out to one side. Oh, he'll have to clean that up. I shouldn't be contaminating the crime scene, Gustav said internally while staring at his saliva a few feet away. Let's begin, Gustav said to Maltida, who nodded and replied before bringing out a flying camera from her storage device. Remember, whatever happens here is between you and I. If it ever gets leaked out, you're done, and you know what I mean by that, Gustav said with a cold expression. Maltida gulped down saliva and nodded. Gustav transformed into Mr. Lon after wearing his current clothing and tying him up by the side. Mr. Lon was only clad in his underwear at the moment. Maltida's eyes widened as she saw Gustav transform into Mr. Lon. He truly does have the ability to shape-shift. Scary, but I have to do this. It's not Mr. Lon, it's Gustav, she said in her mind. Gustav walked towards Maltida, stretched out his right palm and grabbed her breasts. Her expression at the moment was that of a helpless girl trying to fight against being assaulted. The camera in front recorded as Gustav sexually assault Maltida while using Mr. Lon's appearance. Chapter 244. The camera in front recorded as Gustav sexually assaulted Maltida while using Mr. Lon's face. Inside the structure, Gustav laid on a mattress he brought out from his backpack. Now which bloodline to get, Gustav wondered as he scrolled through the list of bloodlines in his line of sight. Shop, Bloodlines, Aqua Adaptation Grade C, 30000C, Adapt to Aqua Life and use Aqua-related abilities, Mutated Lizard Transmutation Grade B, 20000C, Release venomous gas while in the form of a mighty lizard, Wind Body Grade B, 25000C, to become the wind and also manipulate it, Rock Manipulation Grade D, 5000C. Manipulate any form of rock, Ephelis Grade A, 50000C, take on the alien form, Ephelis, and use their abilities, Fiery Constitution Grade C, 33,000C, having the internal structure of fire and the ability to manipulate and resist fire, Radioactive Distribution Grade A, 45,000C, Manipulation of Radiation, Mass Inflation Grade C, 20,000C, ability to increase the mass of things. A few of them look pretty useless, but Gustav remembered something. I don't have a fire-based ability, so I might as well get one now just in case, Gustav thought. He started looking at the bloodlines again for one that could grant him a good fire-based ability. Isn't there any way to filter out fire-based bloodline abilities? Gustav wondered. The instant he had this thought, the interface started changing. Some current characters and words started disappearing, being replaced with new ones. In a few seconds, the list of bloodlines had almost been completely replaced with new ones. Now all the bloodlines in Gustav's line of sight had fire-based abilities. Shop, Bloodline, Fiery Constitution Grade C, 33,000 C, having the internal structure of fire, ability to manipulate and resist fire. Flame Shackles Grade C, 22,000 C, ability to manipulate flames in the form of chains and shackles. Venom Wrapped Grade B, 40,000 C, transform into mutated lizard with the ability to breathe out venomous flames. Coat of Flames Grade B, 45,000 C, ability to summon a coat of flames around your person, degrading the state of the environment. Lifeforms with a particular radius get infected with fiery poisoning. The list continued on, and Gustav checked for the most useful one among them. After looking through the list of 100 bloodlines repeatedly for about 10 minutes, Gustav began to make his decision based on the information displayed underneath the bloodlines. Venom Wrap doesn't seem bad, but a coat of flame seems to have a better fire-based bloodline ability. It would help well against multiple opponents when activated. With this, Gustav made his decision. By Coat of Flames. Immediately after saying this, a system notification popped up in his line of sight. Host has successfully bought Coat of Flames, -45,000C, goal completed. Buy a bloodline from shop, plus 10,000 credits, plus 10,000 EXP. Gustav stared at the notifications with a smirk on his face. Coat of Flames will now be installed, initializing, 1/100%. Gustav stared at the installation bar and waited for the bloodline to be installed within him. During the process, he could feel something flowing into his body. The source was the system, of course. Still, it felt like whatever was flowing into Gustav's body suddenly appeared from an invisible source. While the installation process was ongoing, Gustav decided to distribute the attribute points he got from today's task. Host attributes: Name, Gustav Crimson Level, 21 Class, Subparallel Being EXP, 525, 200/3, 360, 000 HP, 9590/9600 Energy, 3100/4250. Attributes: Strength, 65 Perception, 62 Mental Fortitude, 62 Agility, 62 Speed, 64 Bravery, 62 Intelligence, 63 Charm, 62 Defense, 62 Vitality, 64 Endurance, 67 Attributes Points, 35. He spent around 22 points in other to add 2 points to each stat. By the time he was done, he had checked the notification bar for Bloodline installment and noticed that it was almost done. If I get enough credits, would it be possible to buy every bloodline in the system? If that's possible, where exactly does the system itself get the bloodlines from? This question plagued Gustav's mind. He wished more than anything to know more about the system, but the system was not the talkative or friendly type. The history of their conversations was proof of that. Hey system, at least answer me. Tell me something about how you came into existence, Gustav asked internally. However, as expected, there was no reply. The system only responded to him whenever it wanted to. Gustav, too, wasn't the type who liked unnecessary banter and conversations. Still, the system was really leaving him with a lot of questions, so he started devising plans to make the system converse with him. Smirk. We shall see, Gustav said internally. Nighttime came in the Kaskia ruins, and the participants stopped moving about after finding places to rest for the night. Since groups had been formed, the participants took turns to patrol their sleeping environment during the nighttime. Just in case they were attacked, whoever was patrolling during that time would alert the rest that was asleep. Just like that, a night went by, and the next morning the participants were on the move once again. Even though the participants were numbered in thousands, they had not yet journeyed to every part of the ruins. There were still a lot of unexplored parts of the ruins that the participants hadn't gotten to. At the moment, lots of participants had managed to get one or more stones and were interested in gathering even more. A few groups still hadn't been able to collect a single stone because each territory they visited happened to be places where powerful creatures they weren't powerful enough to handle resided in. Only a few powerful participants were traveling on their own. These participants felt it below them to join groups, and wanted to be untethered and free from any form of burden. Glade Timmy, Ria and the girl Gustav met on the stairs happened to be among the participants that moved on their own. Gustav had already woken up quite early as usual, and he wandered out of his sleeping area. Even when he was asleep during the night, his perception was still subconsciously spread out, so he would sense movements around him, and wake up if something was amiss. Gustav brought out the grand stones in his possession. He counted them after acquiring a few more from a group of mixed breeds territory. 17. I need to acquire more. Chapter 245. Gustav brought out the grand stones in his possession. He counted them after acquiring a few more from a group of mixed breeds territory. 17. I need to acquire more, Gustav said internally as he walked within a passageway. Clash! Bam! Bang! Clang! He suddenly sensed a battle up ahead. Since it was pretty far from the current position, the sounds of a collision were practically inexistent. However, Gustav was able to pick up on them due to his perceptive abilities. God Eyes has been activated. Gustav activated God Eyes and instantly zoomed in on the location, which was thousands of feet away. After the passageway that Gustav was currently in, there was a small space that had 6 passageways leading to different places. Within the second passageway was where this battle was ongoing. Oh! Finally meeting some, Gustav noticed that this group happened to be battling with many mixed bloods putting on red. This red outfit was the same he found on the humanoid-looking aliens, which signified that they were inmates. Those aliens that were supermassive in size wouldn't have this outfit on. Gustav noticed that the number of the participants' group compared to that of the inmates was more, yet they were losing the battle. There were only 4 inmates battling a group of 6. 2 of the participants in the group were battling the supposed leader of the 4 inmates, while the rest battled one-on-one. Ki! Brother, what are we gonna do with these kids after we've dealt with them? One of them, who had water running down his entire body, spoke as he leaped backward, dodging the slash of the youngster in front of him. What else? We're gonna have fun with them, of course. Look at these fresh melons. The inmate who replied was currently battling 2 participants. Yet, he was able to strike a conversation with ease. The participants' group consisted of 2 girls and 4 boys. When they heard the conversation between the inmates, the girls felt uncomfortable, and it affected their fighting capacity a bit. They were reminded that these were hardened mixed-blood criminals who must have been sentenced here for committing heinous crimes. The boys were incensed, and pushed themselves to fight better so nothing would happen to their teammates. While watching from afar, Gustav could already tell what the problem was. The group was inexperienced with battle. They may have trained in combat and sparred, but when it comes to real-life battles where they'd have to fight other people, and their lives depended on it, they were inexperienced. Gustav could see that the inmates weren't much stronger than the participants' group when it came to power levels. However, due to the group's lack of experience, they were losing. Gustav also noticed that only 2 from the participants' group were battling with the intent to kill. He could see that in their strikes and attacks. The rest were subconsciously hesitating due to not having killed a person before. So, their attacks were aimed towards causing injury than killing. Grab. The inmate battling 2 people suddenly made his arms grow larger and grabbed onto the neck of the participant on the right while kicking the one on the left in the guts. Bang! His body traveled across the air and slammed into the wall while the other one that was grabbed happened to be a girl. Now I got one, the inmate voiced out. The girl tried using her bloodline, which gave her superhuman strength to free herself from his grip. Still, his arms enlarged even more and covered her entire body as he held her in front of himself. Brother got himself one already, time to get mine, one of them shouted out from the side. Laura! The boy who was kicked earlier on shouted out as big icicles started protruding from his body. Don't come any closer or she's... While the inmate was speaking, he suddenly sensed something from the left where the entrance of the passageway was located. Swoosh! A gust of breeze blew past them, and the next thing that happened was bang! A heavy sound of collision rang out, and the lead inmate was sent flying towards the side with half of his face covered in blood and multiple teeth flying out of his mouth. Everyone looked behind the girl that was held earlier on, and noticed a male youngster with dirty blonde hair standing in place with his left arm outstretched. He slowly brought down his fist in a cool manner and stared at the rest. The girl who had fallen to the ground after being released from the inmate's grip turned her head to stare at Gustav's face. Her face brightened up as her eyes sparkled with delight. Beautiful, she said internally. Gustav stretched out his hand towards her. She reached out and grabbed it, and he proceeded to pull her up. I want you and your group to leave. This was the first statement she heard from him. Eh? She was surprised by his sudden statement. What do you mean leave? She asked, but Gustav didn't wait to answer. He dashed towards the side and pushed the girl away, dodging an attack from one of the inmates in front. Just go! Swoosh! She only heard his voice, but his figure had already disappeared from her front. The person who had shot out an energy beam from his hand was battling the second girl in the group. He had attacked him because they all paused their battle after Gustav sent their leader flying with a punch. Swoosh! Gustav arrived in front of him and threw out his fist towards the chest of the inmate. His arm transformed into that of the mutated bull as it traveled forward. Still, the instant it was about to make contact, green energy suddenly blasted from the inmate's body. It was practically at point-blank range, so Gustav was unable to dodge. However, he didn't slow down his attack. Gustav's fist still slammed into the chest, but he also received the full brunt of the energy attack. Chapter 246. Gustav's fist still slammed into the inmate's chest, but he also received the full brunt of the energy attack. Bang! Bang! Both of them were blasted backward, and cracking sounds rang out. Gustav landed on his feet about 70 feet away from his initial position. He slid backward for a few seconds while the other inmate slammed onto the ground with his back and a broken sternum. He spat out blood and repeatedly coughed before passing out. Gustav was back at his former position after taking that attack. You're bleeding! The girl who Gustav saved earlier shouted out after noticing the palm-sized hole in Gustav's left shoulder area. I'm fine, Gustav voiced out as blood rolled down his arm. These ones are truly experienced, unlike the opponents I have been facing in the past, Gustav said internally as he stared at his shoulder injury. Even though that inmate was weaker, he still managed to injure Gustav. Before the girl could speak another word, Gustav had already dashed forward to engage the remaining inmates. The rest of the inmates, just like their companions, were also unable to properly follow Gustav's speed. This was a resultant effect of their bloodline abilities getting weakened before being thrown into Kaskia ruins. However, due to their previous battle experiences, they were still able to put up a little bit of fight. Gustav, knowing that he had been careless earlier on, and was getting too cocky due to his easy wins in the past, changed his viewpoint. He decided that he would handle future battles with caution from now on. In a few, the remaining two inmates were taken down by Gustav while the group he saved just watched from the side. They wanted to assist him when he was engaging the inmates previously, but not only were they awed by his movements, they also couldn't properly follow his speed, so they didn't know how to attack. You're still here? Gustav questioned from up front where he was standing in front of the last inmate he took down. The group was brought out of their reverie and started thanking Gustav for his help. Gustav just nodded and asked them to leave once again. Why don't you join our group? We'll let you be the leader, the girl with superhuman strength proposed. Hey Laura, leading is not only based on strength. The other guy fighting beside her was not in favor of the idea. If it is based on weakness, why weren't you able to defeat those inmates yourself? Laura asked with a tone of ridicule. The guy felt ashamed and was about to retort when Gustav replied. Not interested. After saying that, Gustav went to grab the bodies of the inmates and stack them together in a particular place. Why are you dragging them around like they are dead? The other girl in the group who had a binocular on her right eye asked. Because I am going to kill them, Gustav replied while squatting. The entire group was shocked by Gustav's calmness when he mentioned killing the inmates. He sounded like taking the life of others was just a casual thing to do. Even though these were inmates, some of them still felt Gustav shouldn't kill them. Dash. We should give them a chance. Dash. They are serving their term already. Two guys from the group voiced out together. I also don't think you should kill them, the girl with binoculars said. A team of dorks. No wonder they say birds of the same feathers flock together, Gustav said internally. They're serving their term, but did staying in here change them? Have you forgotten what they were going to do to you? Gustav asked the girl in binocular, who shivered slightly the moment Gustav posed that question. Also, if you think you can stop me from killing them, you're free to come and try. Gustav's fingers increased in length as his right hand transformed into that of the Bloodwolf's. The ones who didn't want him to kill the inmates could only watch as Gustav squatted and his claws dug into the neck of the leader of this group of inmates. Blood trickled down the neck of the inmate as a system notification appeared in Gustav's line of sight. Requirement for bloodline acquisition has been met. Analyzing host compatibility with muscle enlargement bloodline 0% per 100%. Analysis complete, 84%/100%. Host compatibility with muscle enlargement bloodline is 89%. Does the host desire to acquire this bloodline? Yes/no. I won't leave any loopholes behind, Gustav said internally before proceeding to say yes to the bloodline acquisition. The main reason why Gustav wanted them dead was to make sure he didn't leave any room for suspicions after taking their bloodlines. Even though he could acquire their bloodlines without killing them, it would be suspicious that they were moving around without using their abilities after he defeated them. The group was unable to stand there and keep on watching as Gustav slit the throat of each inmate after acquiring their bloodline. Those who were against it started puking the moment they saw Gustav brutally slit the throat of the first inmate. The girl who Gustav saved first came over to thank him again before their team left the passageway. After Gustav acquired the 4 bloodlines, he stood up and proceeded to walk forward. With these, I should be able to perform more experiments with recreation. Gustav smiled like a maniac as he moved forward. He had wanted to try out recreation since that time, but he was unable to do so because he didn't want to make use of the 4 he had earlier. He didn't see anything special in these 4 bloodlines, so even if they lost their original properties after recreation, he wouldn't be bothered. I need to find more mixed blood inmates while I'm looking for the stones. Gustav brought out his map and scanned through. The Arcanades didn't map out places where mixed blood inmates could be located. So, Gustav was trying to use the structure of the areas shown to depict places where these mixed bloods might be positioned. Gustav remembered what the last inmate said while he was taking his bloodline. You're all gonna die. Even though we didn't get you lots, the silhouette will. He has been freed. Gustav didn't care about all that and still killed him afterwards since he didn't have the time to torture him to get answers. However, Gustav still wondered, what did he mean? Silhouette. Chapter 247. Gustav didn't care about all that and still killed him afterwards since he didn't have the time to torture him to get answers. However, Gustav still wondered, what did he mean? Silhouette. Gustav started his journey to the places he marked on the map. His plan at the moment was not only to acquire different bloodlines from inmates, but also gather enough grandstones. After that, he decided that he would find a safe place to hide and rest for 2 days while using recreation. In another part of the ruins, Glade and Maltida met up by coincidence, and started journeying together. They had gathered a particular number of stones together, and split them equally. They reached a certain part of the ruins together after dealing with a bunch of mixed breeds. According to the map, the end of the pathway that led them there was supposed to lead to another place. However, they met with a dead end. There was a large rocky wall in front of them. Still, within this large wall that covered their entire line of sight, there was a large opening where a rocky square-shaped boulder sat. The color of this boulder was whiter than that of the wall, so it stood out in that particular spot. The boulder was square-shaped. The two girls stared at the wall before them with a confused expression. There was supposed to be a path here. How could the MBO give us a wrong map? Glade said with a tone of confoundment. I don't know, but I feel like there's something strange about this place, Maltida said while looking around. Of course, it's bloody weird. There's a dead end where there's supposed to be a road, Glade said while rolling her eyes before walking forward towards the wall. Glade, I think we should leave. There's no point in staying here if there's no path. Maltida could not help but feel a certain kind of eeriness creeping down her spine. Yeah, we should leave. What's this? Glade noticed a rock in the middle of the opening on the wall, and walked towards it. Glade, let's... Hold on. What's this weird-looking rock? Glade could see engravings and weird runic-like drawings across the body of the rock as she moved closer to it. She felt something weird coming from the rock, which made her intrigued. Glade started reaching out her hand to touch the weird rock. Glade, let's go, this place is... I don't know. It just doesn't feel... Glade's fingers paused, inches away from making contact with the rock after she heard Maltida's statement. Alright, Grandma, so baggy. Let's go. Glade gave in and retracted her hand. Alright, let's get out of here, Glade said while turning around. Still, the moment she saw Maltida's eyes widening in astonishment, she felt something wasn't right. There's no need to go anywhere. Children! She heard a deep, monotonous, masculine voice from behind that sounded loud and echoed across the place. Sheeing! Glade quickly turned around to look and noticed that the rock inside the hole had two wide open, large eyes that glowed purple. Each eye was comparable to the size of a human head, but that wasn't the problem now. The problem was, Glade found herself unable to move the moment she locked eyes with that of the rock. Kneel! Bam! Bam! It turned out that she wasn't the only one who could not control her body movement because she and Maltida fell to their knees the moment that word was uttered. Fear crept down their spines and dug deep into their hearts and souls as the eyes stared at them. They tried everything in their power to move, but it was futile. You too shall now become my minions like the others before you. You shall do my bidding in order to free me from this accursed hole. Just like that, 7 hours had gone by, and in these 7 hours, Gustav had made progress with hunting the inmates. He had met 2 hordes of them while moving about. Unfortunately, one of the groups he met had just finished decimating an entire team of mixed-blood participants. Gustav, of course, didn't spare a single one of them, and unlike before, he didn't engage them carelessly. Since he noticed them before they did him, he pulled them into a deathly trap to reduce their numbers before engaging them. Gustav would look for areas with concentrated energy, which originated from the initial energy stones that used to be here. He knew that there would be lesser hidden cameras in places like this because they won't be able to function properly. Gustav reckoned that most of these groups that fell to the inmates were being too greedy. The inmates never went too far beyond places where they resided, so these groups could have still escaped if they wanted to. Sadly, they tried biting off more than they could chew. There were some grandstones in that location, which was what clouded their reasoning. The MBO had mentioned that this was supposed to be a survival test phase, which meant surviving here for 4 days was the main goal, while the gathering of grandstones was secondary. However, most of the mixed-blood participants had made surviving secondary and gathering of grandstones primary. Gustav didn't feel pity for such parties because he felt that participants that had gotten this far should be able to use their brains and run for their lives when they came into contact with opponents they couldn't defeat. At the moment, Gustav had acquired 8 more bloodlines and 4 more grandstones, increasing the total count to 21. His plan was to gather up to 30 before finding a good place to hole up for the next 2 days, since he had acquired enough bloodlines for recreation purpose. Since his 7 hours journey, he had gotten more information on the silhouette. He found out that even the inmates feared it since it used to feed on them before it was sealed. However, now, it was freed, and Gustav could guess that it was the doing of the MBO. Well, as long as it doesn't affect me. Why should I care? Gustav threw it to the back of his mind as he continued his journey. Chapter 248. Well, so long as it doesn't affect me. Why should I care? Gustav threw it to the back of his mind as he continued his journey. Good thing that killing mixed bloods now gives me XP. I don't have to bother hunting down only mixed breeds. In another part of the ruins, a group of 6 moved about the place frantically. Dash. Jean! Dash. Jean, where the hell are you? Dash. Jean! How did she just disappear like that? Dash. It's been almost 10 hours. How are we supposed to find her, Angie? The group seemed to be looking for someone. Angie was among them. She paused her steps after dashing across the place repeatedly. We have to retrace our steps, Angie muttered. We'll have to go back to the area we spent the night, Angie proposed. The other teammates nodded in agreement and started turning around. The male participants with white dreadlocks in the group looked around the passageway with caution. Rumors have been spreading around about a silhouette, he whispered softly into Angie's ear. I also heard about it. While looking around the place, I questioned a few of the groups I met, and they said we should leave this area as soon as possible. Angie whispered back. Then we shouldn't be going back, should we? The boy asked with a confounded expression. Don't tell the others. We must find her first before leaving this area, Angie said before proceeding to move forward. The participants behind sighed before proceeding to also move forward. After they had all gone, a silhouette phased out of the wall on the left. Slurp. Slurp. Hee hee, to find her means you must find me since she's already within me. Ha! The silhouette laughed while rubbing its belly area. You have killed a serial ranked mixed blood, plus 15,000 EXP. You have killed a serial ranked mixed blood, plus 15,000 EXP. Gustav was at it again, slaughtering a bunch of inmates that were going against a combination of several groups. This clash was like an ongoing war. Around 50 participants were gathered here battling against these inmates that were over 40 in number. Gustav just happened to meet them while wandering about. To the groups of participants, it felt like he was helping them. However, Gustav was only doing this for his own selfish gains. The crowd was a good cover-up for him to perform his deeds. Gustav noticed that among all the inmates he had slaughtered, none of them surpassed the serial rank. He knew this wasn't their original strength since, according to the briefing, these criminals were weakened before thrown into this place. He figured, the criminals being sent here were all probably on the same level of strength. Which brought him to the conclusion that the government only had the power to reduce the strength of criminals to a particular level. This meant there were other prisons with more powerful criminals who would be beyond the serial rank level even after they had been weakened. Slash. Gustav used his claws to decapitate another mixed-blood criminal, causing their numbers to reduce to around 7. At this moment, the mixed-blood inmates were started to pull back. They stared at the participants in fear. To be more accurate, they were staring at Gustav in that manner since he had slaughtered a bunch of them single-handedly. Just who is that kid, and why is his strength way higher than the rest? This was the thought of the inmates, as they pulled back. There were a lot of strong participants in the combination of groups, but they noticed that Gustav stood out more. This is not just because of the way he fought or his strength, but because he never hesitated when striking a deathly blow. Unlike the others who seemed inexperienced, he was like a pro. No emotion showed on his face when striking down an opponent. Within the building that was a few kilometers from the barricade surrounding the Kaskia ruins, leaders of the MBO from different parts of the world gathered around a table. They seemed to be having an argument as they watched the footages being displayed in a holographic form above the table. Chatter. 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 Dash. He's bloody ruthless. Dash. Like an emotionless killing machine. Dash. Where did this young beast come from? Dash. Remember, he's not the only one. Dash. That girl has also proven to be a psychopath. Dash. The other green-haired boy still seemed pretty okay, but these two, the blonde boy and the indigo-haired girl, must be real psychopaths. Dash. Even if they pass, I suggest they undergo a mental evaluation. Kids their age aren't supposed to be like this. The officials voiced their concerns and suggestions as they watched different locations in the Caskia ruins being displayed in the holographic projections. They seemed to be mostly focused on the projection where lots of inmates were being slaughtered by the participants. Gustav could be seen casually tearing limbs and heads apart as he moved across the battle area like a reaper. One of the officers in the room, dressed in a more and obviously dignified outfit than the rest, raised his left palm. Silence. The room immediately became silent. We should be celebrating that we have gotten such talented youngsters to participate in the test. He started speaking. So why is it that you lots seem quite dissatisfied? He asked. Silence. These youngsters, if groomed properly, will become the next generation of future leaders of the MBO and lead Earth to achieve more glorious deeds. They even have the ability to surpass the present generation. So I ask again, why do you lots complain? The room remained silent once again for a few seconds before a person positioned on the south of the table raised his hand. If I may say, Great Commander Cheyenne, he voiced out. You may speak, young Joe. The man hailed as Great Commander Cheyenne gave the go-ahead. The other commanders aren't alarmed for no good reason. Young Joe started speaking. Everyone listened attentively to young Joe's speech. Looking at these two mentioned, particularly the blonde youngster, don't you find it abnormal that they can perform such deeds without the slightest bit of hesitation? Just how much would kids of their age be groomed and trained to be able to achieve such state of mind on the battlefield? Everyone still waited to see what Hung Joe was getting at. The worries of the commanders aren't unfounded because this blonde youngster was trained by someone that you all consider dangerous, young Joe stated. Mutter. 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 And who may that be? Great Commander Cheyenne asked the same questions on everyone's mind. It is none other than the one known as the Demon Queen, young Mistress Amy. Immediately Hung Joe revealed this, the entire room went silent again as the official's expression were that of disbelief. A strange tension suddenly filled the air as everyone stared at Gustav on the projection again. Are you sure about this, young Joe? Great Commander Cheyenne voiced out. Bang! Gustav finally took care of the last inmate by smashing his skull with his feet after taking his bloodline. That makes it a total of 23. Gustav calculated the number of bloodlines he had taken so far. Hey! I finally caught up to you! A young female voice was heard coming from the passageway up ahead. Gustav stared at the short, cute but violent-looking girl with indigo-colored hair that had just arrived. Sigh. Chapter 249. Gustav stared at the short, cute but violent-looking girl with indigo-colored hair that had just arrived. Sigh. This happened to be the same girl he jumped over at the stairway leading to the ruins. Gustav could tell that she would be a nuisance. Now I've caught up to you, she voiced out while laughing. Gustav stared at her like she was retarded. She had been trying to catch up with him since the beginning, just like the participants that started a fight so they could be the first to reach the bottom of the stairway. Well, now that you've caught up to me, what's next? Gustav asked as another sigh escaped his lips. The girl's face instantly froze up after hearing that. What's next? She muttered with a low tone. For several seconds she stood in place with a contemplative look, unable to say a word in response to Gustav's question. Gustav only shook his head and started moving towards the other passageway. Some of the participants in the vicinity that took part in dealing with the inmates earlier walked up to Gustav and asked for him to be a part of their team. However, Gustav refused all of them as usual and kept on walking towards the other passageway. Hey! He heard a shout from behind and already figured out that it was the same indigo-haired girl. What is it? Gustav asked while pausing his footsteps. Let us compare the number of stones we have gathered, the girl proposed. Gustav turned around to stare at her. Her body size must be equal to her brain. Immature in every way, Gustav could sense the zeal to be the best within her. This girl wanted to be better than everyone. It would seem she derived joy in knowing and showing that she was the best. Gustav guessed that she must have been above everyone else in her life throughout her lifetime, which gave her a kind of zeal to dominate others. Idiot! Gustav voiced out and turned around to keep walking. Hey! Hold it right there! Swoosh! Before she could complete her sentence, Gustav had dashed off into the distance. That! She pointed in the direction Gustav dashed off into with a look of anguish. What are you looking at? She shouted out at the participants behind before also dashing forward. Some of them flinched backwards in fear. These participants recognized her due to the fact that she had become quite popular when she decapitated the mixed breed they met at the stairway. They knew better than to mess with her. Some of them that witnessed her brutality couldn't tell who was stronger between her and Gustav. What made her even more mysterious and scary was the fact that they couldn't figure out her bloodline ability, unlike Gustav, who they had seen transforming. Swoosh! Gustav passed through different passageways as he dashed across the ruins. It was already nighttime, so he was heading back to a particular location that he had decided to sleep in for the night. Not only would he sleep in here for the night, but he had also decided to stay cooped up in there for the next 2 days. After running for about 20 minutes, Gustav arrived in a sloppy area. This area wasn't like the others. Moving on it was like going down a mountain slope. The difference was, it wasn't as sloppy as that of a mountain. SHHHSSHH. Gustav paused his running and slid a few feet forward before stopping in front of a wide hole. PRRKK. PRRKK. Stones rolled down from his feet position into the wide hole. Any little sound echoed due to the silence of the place. The hole was so wide that it covered the entire area. There was no way he could keep going forward since it was like a dead end. A person would have to go back and look for another route if they wanted to get to the other end of the hole. It was so wide that it covered a radius of over 2,000 feet. The depth couldn't be seen since it was also very deep. From the view above, Gustav was like a dot compared to the size of this wide hole. Gustav squatted slightly before jumping into the hole. Swoosh! His body descended rapidly into the dark hole. God eyes have been activated. Gustav activated God eyes and looked down as he fell across the air. He could see the dark hole clearly as he fell. The bottom was too far down for God eyes to see, but the surroundings were visible. Rocks protruded from the sides of the wide hole in different areas. Some had plants growing on them, while others just looked normal. Some places had small holes. Gustav had been descending for about 30 seconds now, and he had descended more than 5,000 feet. He still kept descending without the intention of doing anything about it. It looked as if he was falling to his death. Swoosh! 6,000 feet. 7,000 feet. 8,000 feet. The moment he crossed 9,000 feet, Gustav activated an ability. Size manipulation has been activated. His body started increasing in length as he closed in on a particular hole in the wall about 600 feet below, towards his left. Swoosh! Gustav's body length continued increasing in size as he descended to that particular point. He was now the size of 2 trucks stacked upon one another. The instant Gustav's body descended to the height of the hole towards his left, he stretched out his left hand with intense speed. Clench! His hand reached out and grabbed the edge of the hole in the wall. Gustav's body stopped dropping at this point since he was holding his body weight up. He deactivated size manipulation and returned back to his original size before climbing up into the hole. Unlike the other holes within the walls of this place, this particular one was large enough. It was practically like a room due to its size. Gustav looked around. Only grasses growing out of the floor and rough, rock-like looking edges could be seen. The ceiling was also high enough. Gustav brought out a cube from his backpack and tapped on it. Zroyanin! It unfolded and transformed into a tent-like house. Now I can start my experiments, but first I will cook. Gustav smiled as he walked in. Chapter 250. The ceiling was also high enough. Gustav brought out a cube from his backpack and tapped on it. Zroyanin! It unfolded and transformed into a tent-like house. Now I can start my experiments, but first I will cook. Gustav smiled as he walked in. In a few minutes, The aroma of a delicious delicacy being cooked wafted across the surroundings. Some participants were either getting killed or fighting life and death battles, but Gustav was cooking and enjoying sweet delicacies. After having a good meal and putting some other things in place, Gustav decided to get down to business. He sat in a cross-legged format within his tent-like structure and activated recreation. Recreation has been activated. Gustav felt hot on the inside after activating recreation. He remembered the first time he activated it. The same thing happened. He could feel every bloodline within him bubbling. Which bloodlines does host wish to combine? The system asked. Combine muscle enhancement and energy compression bloodlines, Gustav commanded internally. Host has decided to combine muscle enhancement and energy compression bloodlines, muscle enhancement plus energy compression, calculating compatibility rate, 0%, calculating compatibility rate, 17%, calculating compatibility rate, 37%. Gustav watched as the system calculated the compatibility rate. In a few seconds it was done. Compatibility of combination is 64%. Does host still wish to combine these bloodlines, yes/no? Yes, Gustav answered. Unlike the last time where he got a notification saying the combination might be dangerous, this time seemed to be safer since he didn't get such notification. Combining muscle enhancement and energy compression, recalibrating bloodlines to their initial genetic form, combination process will begin. Combination procedure 0.01%/100%, estimated finish time 6 hours. Gustav noticed that this time recreation wasn't going to take as long as the other time. I don't feel weird like the last time. Gustav also noticed this. However, he received a system notification in the next moment. Host's body will undergo extreme temperature changes within the 6 hours time frame for bloodline recreation. Looks like I spoke too soon. Gustav had a wry smile on his face after noticing this notification. It turned out that there would be different effects for the combination of different bloodlines. Gustav had been thinking it was going to be like the last time where he was unable to control his little brother down there. But now, he confirmed that there would be a different effect each time. This is good too. I can sleep on it. When I wake up, it will be done the next morning, and I can combine other bloodlines during the day. Gustav came to this conclusion before laying on his back. During the night, the effects of recreation kicked in. Sometimes Gustav's body would turn immensely hot, that steam would be erupting from his skin. Even his clothes would be affected, and the entire tent would turn hot. Other times his skin would turn cold and pale white. Ice would start to appear on his skin due to this, causing him to start shivering. Gustav had thought he would get a good night rest and wake up the next morning to see the work done, but he was sorely mistaken. The whole 6 hours went by, and Gustav was unable to close his eyes even once. It's gonna be 2 long days. Gustav had a feeling he'd be unable to get a single ounce of sleep for the next 2 days. He had gotten 27 different bloodlines. He had combined 2, so he still had 25 left. He knew he wouldn't be able to perform recreation on every one of them, but the 2 days was enough time for him to research how recreation worked properly. He believed that he should have figured out a thing or two after about 6 to 7 tries. Recreation successful, B+ grade bloodline. Overhaul has been created. Gustav checked the information immediately. Bloodlines, overhaul energy is generated inside the muscles that create a protective membrane that covers up the host's desired body part, protecting one from blasts. This proves that the bloodlines can transform into something different entirely after being merged, Gustav said internally as his face showed contemplation. Those were 2 grade C bloodlines. Now let me try merging 2 grade B. Gustav was noting down the grades of the bloodlines he merged. All this was for research purposes so he would know how to combine bloodlines more effectively in the future. Gustav wasted no time in looking for 2 grade B bloodlines within him to use for recreation. In a few minutes, he had started combining another bloodline. Just as expected, he went through a different side effect. Still, this time wasn't as extreme as before since the compatibility rate was higher. Gustav bore the effect, and in about 6 to 7 hours, the recreation process was done. Gustav continued this till evening time. After successfully combining 3 bloodlines, Gustav was starting to understand some things about recreation. This time, a grade D and grade B, Gustav decided. Host has decided to combine chemical fingers and iced fox, calculating compatibility rate. 2/100%, compatibility rate of combination is 57%. Does host wish to combine these bloodlines? Yes/no. Gustav had a feeling this was going to be low since the grades were up to a level apart. However, for research purposes, he still decided to agree to it. Combination procedure 1/100%, estimated time 6 hours. Host stats will be halved for the next 6 hours of recreation. Gustav suddenly felt his body weakening after this notification. Sigh. Something like this can happen too? Gustav muttered as he laid on the floor. He wasn't really bothered about it. In the next 6 hours, the recreation would be done. Something suddenly popped up in Gustav's mind. I totally forgot about that. Gustav remembered he was going to test out life signs tracking with God eyes. He had saved a life sign of a female participant back then during the 4th phase and decided he would use her to test it out. God eyes has been activated. Gustav activated God eyes and recalled the life sign of the female participant. The instant Gustav recalled it, his eyes suddenly glowed a bright golden light. Life signs tracking has been activated. Gustav's sight changed, and the view that appeared in front of him was that of a different location entirely. What is this? Angie? Gustav instantly sat up as he noticed something, or rather someone, in his line of sight. What in the world is that? Chapter 251. Gustav's sight changed, and the view that appeared in front of him was that of a different location entirely. What is this? Angie? Gustav instantly sat up as he noticed something, or rather someone, in his line of sight. What in the world is that? Gustav could see Angie and a group of 4 going against a shadowy humanoid-looking creature. The creature would merge into structures, and the next time it appeared would be from another location. The instant it grabbed onto a person, the person's body part it made contact with would be covered in a web of blackish substance. Instantly that body part will lose function, and the creature would gain control of it. At the moment, piles of body parts could be seen on the ground. Heads, limbs, ears, eyeballs, etc. A boy sporting white dreadlocks was currently engaging in the battle with a single arm. His left arm was among the arms sprawled all over the place. Gustav could already guess what happened when he noticed those tendrils of the black web on the body parts scattered all across the place. Gustav could only see what was going on, but he couldn't hear anything. When he tried looking down, he could see eyelashes and a pointy nose that obviously belonged to that of a girl. Gustav could tell that he was seeing from the position of her forehead, but that didn't last for long. He suddenly noticed the creature appear in front of his line of sight, covering the whole view. The next thing that happened was his line of vision tilted before he was disconnected from the girl. What just happened? Did she just get decapitated? Gustav said internally as he hurriedly stood to his feet. That thing was like a physical shadow. Could that be the silhouette I've heard about? A frown appeared on Gustav's face as he figured that this was the case. To fight something that cannot be touched physically is practically impossible for Angie. If she wanted to use a cumulative blast, she would need a large space to run in. Also, it isn't very advisable to use an attack that covers a wide range underground due to possible structural collapse. She must be limiting her abilities because of the group. Gustav sighed as he made an analysis based on what he saw a while ago. Sigh, Angie is just being Angie. This situation just had to happen in my current circumstance. Gustav sighed as he spoke. He checked his stats and noticed that they had truly been halved. Although Gustav was surprised when he noticed the silhouette, he wasn't really worried because he knew Angie could escape from that place with her full speed if she wanted to. The only problem was she wouldn't be willing to leave the rest of the group to battle with the silhouette on their own. He already saw tears in her eyes as her teammates were being butchered. I have to go. Gustav's face turned serious as he started to transform. Black scales appeared on his body as ram horns grew out of his head. In a few seconds, Gustav had completely transformed into a large mixed-breed serpent. His clothes were torn apart in the process, as his current size took nearly half of the space in the cave-like hole. He hissed as his body wriggled out of the hole with speed and started climbing upwards towards the top of the hole. Sprint has been activated, swoon. Gustav, in his transformed state, crawled upwards across the walls of the hole. He coupled sprint with the normal speed of the Savernia serpent mixed breed. At least the stats getting have didn't affect my bloodlines or skills. I can still make use of them at their original power, Gustav said internally as he noticed this. His speed may have been reduced, but it was still fast when he coupled sprint with the serpent's transformation. In about 2 minutes, Gustav had climbed out of the hole and transformed back into human form before letting his feet take the form of the Bloodwolf. Originally, the Bloodwolf could move at 100 feet per second. Still, when Gustav activated sprint, it was close to his original speed when sprint was activated. The Bloodwolf was the fastest transformation in his possession, so that was the best to use for the current situation. Swoosh! Gustav dashed with speed across the passageway he first came into contact with. Even though life sign tracking had been deactivated, Gustav was still able to sense how to get to the location. He moved as fast as he could at the moment. He could have still boosted his speed by combining dash and sprint. However, he felt he should conserve energy for the upcoming battle since he only had little information about the silhouette. Be okay till I get there, Angie. Gustav couldn't just get rid of the nagging feeling tugging at the back of his mind. Underscore 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 in the part of the ruins where the battle was ongoing, for participants with fatigued-looking faces engaged the silhouette in front. They couldn't touch the creature since a single touch would cause their hands to be infected with blackish energy. Even their long-ranged attacks were barely effective. Angie was practically useless in the fight. All she could do was run around throwing some things she picked up at it. The silhouette was currently handling their attacks with ease while feeding on the arm of a team member. Slurping and crunching sound reverberated across the place as it chewed casually. It was almost like it was mocking them. "You bastard! How could you eat Maddie?" One of them shouted out as he swung out spiky rocks towards the silhouette. Tears and snot had covered his face, which was filled with panic and rage. She's delicious, delicious, yummy, tasty. Laughter could be heard coming from the silhouette as it phased into the ground, dodging the attacks before phasing out of another part of the ground where corpses could be seen. The silhouette quickly grabbed onto the leg of a female corpse and tore it from her body. A wide opening appeared in its face area, and it proceeded to dip half of the leg from the thigh area into its mouth before biting down with intensity. The group eyes turned red even more as they witnessed that. However, before they could attack it, it disappeared once again, only for it to reappear about 300 feet away. It stared at the group with a taunting look as it feasted on the legs of the girl. "Ah!" One of them shouted out and dashed towards it with a crazed look. "Johnson, no!" The group screamed out, but he totally ignored them. A large grin appeared on the face of the creature as it watched the boy approach him. Just as it was preparing to attack the boy, swoosh! Angie swooped in and grabbed onto the boy before forcefully returning back to their initial position. "Don't be stupid. The closer we are to it, the more shadows it will be able to manipulate and deal with us," Angie voiced out with a slightly annoyed tone. Chapter 252. She was also angered and pained by what had gone down here today. She watched her group members get slaughtered like livestock, and she blamed herself for it. She wanted to find the teammate that disappeared by all means and ended up dragging the rest of the teammates into the current predicament. Not only had the teammate who they had been looking for died, some of them that followed her here had also lost their lives to the silhouette. One of the 4 teammates, who were currently alive, had lost his left arm because he had to cut it off the moment it became infected with the blackish web gotten from making contact with the silhouette. He didn't want to end up attacking anyone due to his body being manipulated, which was why he had to make that decision. "We're at a disadvantage because we're in a dim vicinity," Angie muttered. Angie and her teammates had been avoiding areas that had shadows cast over them because the silhouette was capable of manipulating that. This not only restricted their movement range but also affected their battle performance. Had the boy who Angie just saved moved a foot further, he would have stepped within the silhouette range of attack. A single strike was what the silhouette needed to end anyone's life. The silhouette just stood about 300 feet ahead, leaning on a pointy rock and munching on a leg while staring at the group in front. It didn't seem bothered, almost like it was sure these kids were incapable of causing it any issues. You guys should go get help from other groups. I have a plan, Angie proposed. The three beside her stared at her with a confused expression. Aren't you coming with us? The kid with white dreadlocks asked. No, I have to stay here and stall it, or none of us will be able to leave here successfully, Angie replied. The boy thought about it and remembered that participants had been avoiding this area, particularly because of the rumors on the silhouette, so he knew it wouldn't be easy to find a group. Even if they did find a group, he wondered if they'd be willing to assist them in dealing with the silhouette. No, that isn't an option. We're going to deal with it together, the kid voiced out. If we do that, we'll all die here. Like I said, I have a plan. If you all don't go, I can't execute it, Angie said. They stared at her with a contemplative expression. The other girl, who had green-colored hair, decided to say something. What are you planning? She asked. Something that will either knock that thing out or damage it severely. Don't worry, it'll be okay. It can't catch up to me, remember? Angie assured them. All right, well, go and get help. Stay safe. The rest of the group finally agreed and started moving backwards slowly. This particular area had 3 to 4 feet rocks protruding from different parts of the ground, which caused shadows to be cast almost everywhere. However, one of their teammates blasted apart a lot of them before he was taken down, which gave the participants a place where they could stand and be safe from the silhouette assaults. For some reason, it was unable to make use of living things' shadows, but it could use that of inanimate things. Angie fixed her eyes on the silhouette as her teammates moved to the back. They suddenly started running towards the passageway 1,000 feet behind. Angie kept watching the silhouette without moving. The silhouette didn't even act like they were trying to get away. It still continued eating body parts. In a few seconds, Angie's teammates were out of sight. Now it's just you and me, Angie voiced out with a tone of anguish as her eyebrows creased together. I'm going to have to use it. I don't care if I get buried here. I won't let this thing run amok, slaughtering more innocents. Tears rolled down Angie's eyes as she came to this conclusion. Hee, the most delicious one has stayed behind. Slurp, now that the distractions are gone, I can enjoy you properly. The silhouette phased into the ground as those words were uttered. Swoosh. Angie, too, had also dashed out. When the silhouette phased out of the ground a few feet towards the right from Angie's initial position, she had already disappeared. Swoosh. Another horn grew out of Angie's forehead as she started running in a circular format around the vicinity. Swea. The silhouette was extremely shocked as it stood in place, staring at the multiple afterimages circulating around it. It couldn't tell where Angie was at the moment due to her immense speed. Slurp, even going to be more delicious. I can't wait to feast on him. The silhouette suddenly sensed something and paused its speech. Whitish energy started building around the afterimages it was seeing circulating around it. It could sense immense destructive energy from the whitish energy circulating around Angie. Swoosh. Angie kept running around it, building up the destructive whitish force of energy surrounding her. The silhouette started phasing into the ground and appearing in different places trying to catch Angie's figure, but it was of no use. Bam! When it got too close, it was blasted aside by the force gathering around Angie. Impossible. This little one, it stared at Angie afterimages from its position in the middle. Angie had now gathered energy to the extent that the ground began to quake gently, and the rocks protruding from the ceiling started to crumble. Good, this is good. It will only make you more delicious. The large silhouette's set of pointy teeth were revealed as it laughed. Angie frowned more as she dashed towards the silhouette with the purpose of releasing the gathered energy once she had closed in on it. The silhouette suddenly grinned again and slapped its hands on the ground. Pa! Dark energy suddenly spread from its position, and shadowy black tendrils shot out of every part of the ground. Sweet eye! Angie's legs were suddenly wrapped by these tendrils. Ha! Due to the tendrils suddenly hindering her movement, and all the speed she had gathered, she found herself somersaulting forward. Angie's body spun severally in midair before slamming onto the wall on the side. Bang! The wall vibrated, and a large chunk of rock broke apart before falling on the lower part of her body. Kairar! Angie screamed out in pain as a pointed part of the rock stabbed into her left thigh. Hee, I will enjoy tasting your meat, slurp! The silhouette voiced out as it approached Angie. It squatted and pulled the rock off her before lifting her. Let her go! A loud voice was heard from behind. Chapter 253. Hee, I will enjoy tasting your meat, slurp! The silhouette voiced out as it approached Angie. It squatted and pulled the rock off her before lifting her. Let her go! A loud voice was heard from behind. The silhouette's grayish tongue was only inches away from touching Angie's face when the shout was heard. The silhouette grin broadened. Yet another delicious one has appeared, slurp! It made slurping sounds as it spoke and released Angie's neck from his grip. It turned around to see who had just arrived, not even bothering about Angie escaping since he knew her legs were in a damaged state at the moment. Two girls could be seen moving in her direction several hundred feet away. One of them had long white hair, a pretty face, and a tall figure, while the other was a green-skinned girl with a long brown tail. The girl with white hair was the one who shouted out earlier. Even the silhouette had thought it was a single person, but the moment he turned around, he figured he was wrong. I didn't sense the presence of that green-skinned girl. The silhouette stared at the green-skinned girl in particular with knitted eyes. Both girls were obviously Glade and Maltida. They had arrived just in time before the silhouette could finish Angie off. Angie, are you okay? Maltida shouted as they closed in on them. Angie gathered her strength and pulled her body to the side before replying. I'm okay. Even though her thigh was bleeding, she didn't want to be a dead weight, so she tried to get out of their range. The silhouette scrutinized Glade intensely and noticed something. What is the red energy that covered her entire figure? It wondered. However, before it had enough time to gather, its thought Glade suddenly dashed out. Swoosh! Although her speed was nothing compared to that of Angie's, her explosiveness was nothing to scoff at. The red ore-like energy covering her entire figure intensified, and two large red sickles were conjured out of thin air. Grab! Grab! Glade grabbed them both and hacked down at the silhouette in an X format with both sickles. The air vibrated as both sickles traveled towards the neck area of the silhouette with intensity. Thwum! The silhouette bent backward to the extent that its back nearly made contact with the 3-foot pointy rock protruding from the ground behind him. Both attacks missed him as he used that opportunity to sink into the shadows and appear behind Glade. Glade had extremely fast reflexes, so she responded by spinning and swinging her left arm out in the process. Slash! Once again, her sickle aimed for the head of the silhouette, who dodged quickly towards the side. Slash! Swerve! Slash! Swerve! Slash! Swerve! Glade was not giving the silhouette any leeway or time to think, as she kept bombarding it with different attacks. While Glade was busy engaging the silhouette, Maltida had approached Angie's position. Amazing. She's handling it all by herself, Angie was astonished as she watched from the side. Don't let it touch you! It's dangerous! Angie voiced out with a tone of worry, as she noticed the silhouette nearly grazed its fingers against Glade's arm as they battled. Come on, let's go! Maltida squatted as she helped Angie up. Angie held on to Maltida for support as they moved away from the battle range. When they got to the far end of the area where different passageways could be seen, Maltida kept taking her further. Maltida, you can leave me here. I'll take some healing meds. You should go help Glade out because she can't take on that silhouette by herself, Angie said while gesturing at a particular spot up front. However, for some reason, Maltida ignored her statement and kept moving forward. Maltida. Angie kept calling out to her, but Maltida ignored her and kept supporting Angie's movement as they entered the fourth passageway. Maltida, where are you taking me? Angie asked as they kept moving through the passageway. Maltida! Angie shouted out and pulled her arm from Maltida's grip. Plop! She fell to the ground and started making use of her hands to pulling her body backward. Maltida turned around to stare at Angie with glowing purple eyes. I know about your power, kid! You will be useful in helping me find what I want. A deep masculine but monotonous voice could be heard coming from Maltida's mouth as she spoke. What is with you? Maltida? What's happening? Angie crawled backward with all her might, and even tried standing to her feet, but the intense pain in her thighs caused her to fall again. Spurt. Spurt. Due to her repeatedly trying to stand, more blood started spilling out from the injury on her thighs. Not understanding the situation and not wanting to be caught, Angie used the other leg, which wasn't as badly injured as the left, and started hopping. Maltida followed behind her with a frown. All this is futile. You shall come with me and become one of my loyal puppets, Maltida voiced out as she caught up with the leaping Angie. Grab. She grabbed Angie's neck from behind and lifted her with ease. Let us go, she said while turning Angie around and placing Angie on her right shoulder. Angie tried resisting by punching out with super speed. However, a silver panel appeared on Maltida's body when her fist made contact. This protected Maltida, rendering her punches futile. What is going on? Why is Maltida like this? It seems like she is being controlled by something. Angie's mind was in a state of disarray at the moment. If she's like this, then does that mean Glade is also? Angie's face shone panic as Maltida turned around to continue heading down the passageway. Just when Angie's mind was in a state of intense confusion and panic, a loud whooshing sound was heard coming from up ahead. Swoosh! Angie was the first to notice this since she was a speedster, but Maltida was slower. By the time she noticed it, a fist was already in front of her face. Chapter 254. Pa! A loud collision rang out, followed by a female body traveling in an arc across the air. Bang! Maltida's body slammed into the wall, and her eyes turned blurry. Still, she could partially see a familiar male figure in front of her. A silver covering could be seen on the left side of her face, which took the force of the punch. Gustav? Angie voiced out from the ground. Even with that amount of force, she didn't pass out. This proves that I have truly weakened. Gustav stared at his fist as he lowered it. He was using sprint, so, due to his speed, the force of his punch was multiplied by 4. Originally, that would be enough to nearly decapitate a mixed blood of Maltida's strength, but now that he had been weakened, it could only do this much. Are you okay? Gustav asked as he squatted in front of Angie. Angie's eyes were already watering as she stared at Gustav's face. She remembered everything she had gone through since the start of this phase. The deaths she had to witness, and the decisions she made. Gustav! She didn't know where the strength came from as she jumped into his embrace. Gustav was a bit surprised by her action, but when he thought about the current situation, he had a vague idea of why she acted in this way. Gustav looked down at Angie's head resting on his chest and raised his hand before bringing it down on her hair. He gently caressed her silver and pink hair as his jaw made contact with her horns. It's all right. Everything is gonna be fine now. Gustav had never said these words before, but for some reason, he felt good saying it. Maybe that feeling of wanting to do heroic deeds was still there but just not present with everyone. Gustav noticed that Maltida had come back to her senses and was ready to attack him. So, he quickly found a spot and dropped Angie there. So, we finally meet! The same masculine voice was heard from Maltida's mouth as she spoke with a huge frown. Be careful. She's not in her right senses, Angie voiced out as Gustav approached Maltida. Thanks for stating the obvious, Angie. Anything else you'd like to add? Gustav said while standing several feet away from Maltida, who still had glowing purple eyes. Angie giggled lightly after hearing that. Just be careful. I think Glade is also the same way, Angie voiced out. Glade? Before Gustav could try and find out more, Maltida dashed forward as liquid-like silver started coating her entire body from head to toe. What exactly is wrong? I have to engage her first before making any assumptions, Gustav said internally as he also dashed forward. Maltida conjured a silver-like spear from her body and swung it at Gustav. Gustav swerved to the left, but the instant he dodged it, Maltida swung it towards the left with force. Swoosh! Gustav straightened his left palm before sending it towards the side body of the spear. Palm strike has been activated. Bam! Gustav's palms slammed into the body of the spear, sending it flying from Maltida's hand. Swoon! Immediately his left palm made contact, he spun around and sent his right elbow out towards Maltida's face. Bam! Maltida blocked it with her right arm, but the force still caused her to slide backward by several feet. The instant she dropped her arm, which was currently blocking her sight since she used it in blocking Gustav's attack, she noticed a large brownish foot laced with sharp claws headed for her chest. Shiuk! Silver-like spikes suddenly protruded from her body as Gustav's foot traveled in midair towards her chest. Gustav, who was in midair, was unable to stop his movement, so he quickly spun and sent his right foot hurling towards the left side of Maltida's face. Bam! Gustav's right leg slammed into Maltida's face, sending her flying towards the side. Swoosh! Gustav didn't wait for an instant. The moment his foot touched the ground, he dashed out again as his fist got covered with a layer of icicle-like covering. Bam! 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 He repeatedly threw out fists at Maltida even though her body was still full of silver-like spikes. Each time his fist made contact, the spikes would be blasted apart, giving Gustav the chance to punch her silver covering. Maltida's silver covering was very hard and protected against every kind of attack. However, once Gustav started gaining the upper hand, throwing out punches repeatedly, he let his arm take the form of the mutated bull. His fist was also covered with the Iros silk from the Calapisol alien life form he took, along with atomic disintegration coating both his arms. Maltida's silver outer covering was riddled with holes in a few minutes. Bam! Swee-eye! Gustav's fist sent Maltida flying again before she slammed into the wall. Bang! Blurg! She spat out blood before sliding to the ground. Still, her eyes had a purplish glow even they had slightly dimmed. Interesting. Looks like the information my puppets have fed me was true, Maltida voiced out. What information? Gustav asked as he started walking towards Maltida. About your excellence. You are truly what I need, Maltida replied. What do you mean by that? Gustav asked with a confused expression. Ha ha ha, I have found the one. Surrender yourself to me, kid! Maltida shouted out while standing to her feet. Do you not see the situation you're in? Why would I surrender to you? Gustav responded as he continued walking towards her. If you want this vessel to be free, you have to, Maltida said with a smile. I'm sure you share some attachments to this person. Gustav stood in front of Maltida and smiled. You think I care? He voiced out before grabbing Maltida by the neck. Cough. 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 Gustav gripped her neck tightly as he spoke. Ha ha, did you really think you could get me with this? He continued to squeeze as he spoke. Did I miscalculate? How could she share such memories with him, and he holds no regard for her? Maltida's face showed a choking look as the being controlling her mind thought. The being stared at Gustav's expression from his Maltida's point of view. He's a crazed kid, this one. He's not bluffing. He doesn't care. The being realized this as he stared at Gustav's uncaring expression. I'd better withdraw from this vessel before I get affected by her death. I cannot afford to lose a single ounce of power, the being concluded. Do not delude yourself, kid. I shall have you soon. My puppets shall bring you to me in due time. Gustav heard these words in his mind as the purplish glow in Maltida's eyes faded. The voice sounded exactly the same as the one coming from Maltita's mouth earlier. Plop! Maltita fell to the ground and passed out afterward. Maltita! Angie shouted out from behind and ran towards Gustav and Maltita's position. She took a healing capsule a while ago, so her injuries had almost healed up completely. Is she dead? Angie asked while staring at the unconscious body of Maltita, which was still without any movement on the ground. Chapter 255. Is she dead? Angie asked while staring at the unconscious body of Maltita, which was still without any movement on the ground. Angie checked if Maltita was breathing and found out that she wasn't. Angie still checked for her pulse, but there were still no signs of life. Angie stared at Gustav, whose face was still as uncaring as ever. You didn't have to. Angie didn't even know what to say. She understood how everything got to this point, but she still felt conflicted because this was someone who had ties to Gustav. Gustav turned around and started walking away. Recheck her pulse, Gustav instructed as he walked forward. Angie didn't understand why he said that, but she decided to do as instructed. Huh! She suddenly felt pulse movement from Maltita. Twitch! Twitch! Maltita's eyelids twitched twice, proving that she was still alive. How? I clearly felt no pulse from her a while ago. Angie checked again to be sure and even placed her fingers underneath Maltita's nostrils. She had started breathing once again. Angie stared at Gustav's back with a look of astonishment, wondering what he did. Unbeknownst to her, Gustav never intended to kill Maltita. He knew so well about mixed blood's anatomy, so he had applied pressure on the part of Matilda's neck that cut off her oxygen supply for a few seconds. It also caused the throbbing of her pulse to slow down. Angie had thought she was dead due to all these. Gustav questioned Angie about the situation so he could get as much info as possible to deal with the threat at hand. She explained to him all that had happened so far, including how her group ran into the silhouette and nearly got wiped out. She also told him how Maltita and Glade came to her rescue, which led to the current scenario. However, when it came to the current scene, which led to the battle between Gustav and Maltita, Angie was just as clueless as Gustav. The only thing she could mention was that whoever was controlling the mind of Maltita wanted her for an unknown reason, and now Gustav knew that the unknown person also wanted him. The question that plagued their minds now was, why? For what purpose would that person be after them? Gustav started drawing out possible reasons and plots in his mind. Nevertheless, without more information, he couldn't narrow down the thousands of possible reasons this would be happening. However, one thing Gustav was sure of was the fact that whoever was doing this is definitely an alien inmate. His reason for thinking this way was based on the level of strength of every inmate he had met so far. Every inmate was within the serial rank, but when it came to aliens who didn't have the same power system as mixed bloods, their strength varied. The Calapisol and Arcanades were proof of that. They were way more powerful than the mixed blood inmates. Gustav could tell that it would be impossible for a mixed blood on the serial rank level to control multiple minds simultaneously. Since the person mentioned that they would be sending more puppets after Gustav, it was safe to assume they controlled more participants aside from Glade and Maltita. Although this wasn't a very useful fact, it made Gustav prepare his state of mind for whatever was going to come next. Around 5 hours left, Gustav said internally while staring at Angie and Maltita, who was still unconscious on the ground. He would have liked to ask Maltita about the being that inhabited her mind, but time was of the essence. He couldn't wait for her to regain consciousness because he could tell that whatever this was, carried more danger than the silhouette. You're gonna stay here with her, Angie. I'll have to deal with this on my own, Gustav stated as he started walking forward. No, we're going to deal with it together, Angie voiced out with a look of determination while standing up. At this point, her injuries had healed completely. However, a look of fatigue could be seen on her face. Even though she had healed up due to the meds, her energy had almost been completely depleted. She and the group had been battling the silhouette for a long time, and the meds also made use of her energy to grant her healing. Gustav paused his footsteps and turned around to stare at her. God eyes have been activated. It's not up for a debate, Gustav voiced out before turning around to keep moving. Take care of her and hide out somewhere till I'm back, Gustav instructed before dashing forward with speed. Angie wanted to follow, but she remembered that Maltida was still unconscious behind her, so she stopped herself. Gustav was out of sight in no time. Please wake up soon so we can go help Gustav, Angie hoped with a low tone while squatting to lift Maltida up. Gustav had already arrived in front of Glade and the Silhouette's battle scene, and to his surprise he could still hear the sounds of attacks as he closed in on the area. He paused thousands of feet behind and watched Glade engage the Silhouette masterfully. According to Angie, making contact with the Silhouette wasn't an option, but what he saw made him doubt that claim. Glade was currently engaging the Silhouette with her bare hands. Although the Silhouette was obviously stronger in terms of strength, the expression of disbelief was still noticeable on the Silhouette's faceless face area. Bam! 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 It made contact with Glade repeatedly, but she was unaffected by its touches. Why don't you join me, and I shall restore you back to your full glory once I have gotten what I want? The same voice heard from the mouth of Maltida could be heard coming from Glade's mouth also as she engaged the Silhouette. He slurp. I don't care about all that slurp. I only want to eat. The Silhouette responded with this while increasing the force of its attacks. Chapter 256. Gustav had already seen what happened to others when the Silhouette touched any part of their body, so he wondered why Glade was a different case. God eyes have been activated. Gustav made an analysis of the battle using God eyes. He noticed that the reddish ore-like energy surrounding Glade's figure was what prevented her body parts from being infected by the Silhouette's blackish web-like tendrils. Maybe I can try something, a plan started formulating in his mind upon figuring out the reason behind Glade's immunity. However, Gustav's plan formulation was cut short as two pairs of menacing-looking eyes turned around and stared in his direction. SHHHSSHH. SHHHSSHH. Glade and the Silhouette had just exchanged another blow, so they were still sliding away from each other after making contact. That was when they noticed Gustav squatting behind a pillar-like rock thousands of feet behind. The Silhouette's dark eyes widened as it stared at Gustav. Slurp, I want that one even more, it voiced out while phasing into the shadows on the ground. Oh no, you don't! He's mine! Glade voiced out before dashing forward with speed. However, the Silhouette only needed an instant to arrive behind Gustav. Slash! The instant it was phasing out of the ground, it had already transformed its arm into a large shadowy one with 17 blackish claws. Thump! Gustav leaped backward, dodging the slash of the claws, which slammed into the pillar-like rock he was standing behind, causing a chunk of it to get smashed to pieces. Debris scattered across the place, but the Silhouette didn't wait for a second more before dashing forward towards Gustav again. This was when Glade arrived and parried the second slash with her reddish energy sickle. I said he's mine! You can have your pick of anyone else after joining me. The masculine monotonous voice could be heard coming from Glade's mouth once again as she and the Silhouette pushed against each other. I want this one slurp! He tastes very delicious. The Silhouette voiced out as dark tendrils shot out of the shadows surrounding them towards Gustav. Thump! Gustav once again leaped upwards and spun, dodging some of the tendrils while activating atomic disintegration to cut through the ones he couldn't dodge. Bam! SHHHSSHH. Gustav landed about 100 feet towards the left and slid backward by a few feet. Glade only waved her sickle about 3 times to cut through the dark tendrils that came for her. If I'm not careful, its attack will make contact with me soon. It will take some time to activate that ability, so I have to be careful, Gustav said internally while staring at the Silhouette from his position. At the moment, the Silhouette was kind of in the middle, while Gustav was on the left and Glade on the right. The three stared at one another warily for a few seconds. None of them were allies, but at the moment, Gustav knew who to work with. Swoosh! Glade dashed towards the silhouette once again, swinging her sickle. The silhouette dodged them tactfully and sunk into the shadows only to appear beside Gustav again. This time it reached out very fast and almost touched Gustav's neck. However, Gustav was able to evade his touch by a few centimeters and quickly countered by sending out a palm strike. Swoosh! Silver-like energy covered his palm as it traveled towards the shoulder area of the silhouette. Fwum! Gustav's palm passed through thin air as the silhouette disappeared again and appeared on his right. Slurp! Gustav heard the slurping and tried turning around as fast as possible to counter. Still, the silhouette's face was just about 2 inches away from his neck. Schwang! A red sickle appeared in between the 2 inches space before Gustav and the silhouette. It traveled in and horizontally towards the neck of the silhouette. Fwum! The silhouette was forced to sink into the shadows again to dodge Glade's sickle attack. Hee, you're a nuisance, Slurp. What happened to giving me everything I wanted? The silhouette who appeared on the far east voiced out. This one is off limits. I shall have him for myself. Glade voiced out. You can have the others. I want to taste this one, or we can each take a portion of him. Slurp. The silhouette responded with this. Keep talking like I'm not right here, Gustav stated with a slightly offended tone from the side. Unknown to both of them, he was building his energy internally in accordance with his plan. This isn't up for debate. He is mine. Glade totally ignored Gustav's statement and shouted out to the silhouette. Slurp. Not if I have him first. The silhouette voiced out as it clasped its hands together. For darkness suddenly started spreading out of its body. Carpet of darkness. The silhouette voiced out as it stomped its right foot on the ground. The shadows in the vicinity suddenly started swirling and expanding. Zazun! In a few seconds, on the ground, a radius of over 7,000 feet had been covered in darkness. You can only escape from this if you have flight ability, but even with that, slurp. The silhouette made another slurping sound as it spoke. Gustav wanted to take a step forward when large black arms suddenly shot out of the ground from his right and left sides. The palms of both hands were so big that their height was comparable to the pillar-like rock Gustav was hiding behind earlier. Glade's eyes widened as she saw it and dashed forward with all her might. Gustav also leaped upwards to dodge the concentration area, but before they could move further than a foot. Clasp! Both hands clasped together with immense speed and force, covering Gustav's figure in an instant. Bam! No! Glade shouted out with a look of fury. It was still suspended in midair, but with the amount of force at which both palms clasped together, all his bones would have been broken, and would have probably turned into mincemeat by now. Chapter 257. It was still suspended in midair, but with the amount of force at which both palms clasped together, all his bones would have been broken and probably turned into mincemeat. He's mine now. Even if you want him, you can't get him because every part of his body will belong to me. The silhouette laughed while speaking. You idiot! I could have become powerful enough to grant you freedom and give you the opportunity to leave this hole. Glade voiced out with a tone of anguish while staring at the silhouette. You better mind how you speak to me. He is in my hands and... The silhouette paused as it sensed something. Rays of bright yellow light started to shoot out of the palms. Holes appeared in different spots on the dark palms, and more rays of light shot out of them. Fwum! The arms were suddenly blasted apart as Gustav's figure floated in midair while being surrounded by flames for a few seconds before landing on the ground. Bam! His glowing figure drove the darkness in the vicinity away. His upper body was covered in a long coat of burning yellow flames. In contrast, his lower half was covered in silver-colored energy. Gustav smiled as he stared at the silhouette, who was slowly taking steps backwards. Let's see you try to touch me now, he voiced out with a confident look. Gustav activated his new bloodline, coat of flames, while also using atomic disintegration to cover parts of his body that were still exposed. This was the reason why he had to build energy, because he was using the technique he got from the system 2 months back. Energy distribution. If he wanted to use atomic disintegration to cover his entire body, it would take up so much energy, and he would be drained in a matter of seconds. This was why he decided to use a coat of flames, since that one was a more natural ability from the bloodline. It wouldn't take up much energy compared to using atomic disintegration. Now that I can finally touch you, how about we go again? Swoosh! Gustav hadn't finished speaking before his figure disappeared from that spot and appeared in front of the silhouette. Hee, don't get cocky just because you became a glowing stick, slurp! The silhouette voiced out and slashed at him. Gustav's claws were also traveling towards him. Gustav swerved and dodged the claws while his attack kept traveling forward. Bam! The silhouette accurately grabbed hold of his arm and turned around to swing Gustav away. Gustav's body traveled across the air, with his back facing the pillar-like wall up ahead. Just when he was inches away, he suddenly spun in midair and landed both feet on the pillar-like rock. Fwum! He pushed out both legs, using the rock to push himself forward. Swoon! Gustav somersaulted in midair and brought down his extended right leg on the head of the silhouette. The silhouette was unable to phase into the shadows due to Gustav's coat of flames that drove all the shadows away. Grab! It was able to grab onto Gustav's leg before it slammed into his head. Crumble! The ground underneath cracked due to the intense force, and the silhouette growled slightly in pain. Swee-yi! Out of nowhere, a sickle came slicing through the air. Bam! It slammed into the shoulder of the silhouette, causing it to shriek in pain as it nearly tore off its entire left arm. As the silhouette was sent crashing forward, Gustav landed on his feet and activated combination. Sprint plus dash swoosh. Gustav was finally able to use the speed that was a little bit faster than his original using sprint. His body traveled forward with speed while his left arm swung forward towards the left shoulder area of the silhouette. Slash! Pryuk! The silhouette's left arm was finally severed from its shoulder, and black blood started flowing out of it. Grhhhh! The silhouette growled in pain as it slammed into the wall on the other side due to Gustav's added force. Gustav quickly deactivated combinations so as not to use up more energy than he already had. The instant the silhouette slammed into the wall, it sank into the shadows again. Gustav didn't move too close to it, so that place had some shadows. Gustav only stood in position and smiled. You can't get away. Haven't you sensed it already? The instant those words were uttered, a figure fell from the top of the ceiling area on the west side. Bam! It was the silhouette. Cough! Cough! It coughed out droplets of yellow liquid from its mouth repeatedly. When the yellowish liquid made contact with the ground, a sizzling sound was heard. What is this? What's happening? Cough! Cough! It kept coughing out the yellow liquid as it spoke. It could feel its body getting weaker, and glowing yellowish scalds began to appear on different parts of its figure. I poisoned you. I didn't really know how this poison works since this is the first time for me, but hey, you turned out to be a good specimen. I can't seem to hear those slurping sounds anymore. Gustav laughed lightly as he approached the silhouette. The silhouette forcefully pushed itself up and tried to escape by moving closer to areas with shadow. However, Gustav closed in on him, making that impossible. Swoosh! Gustav dashed forward and slashed at the silhouette, who quickly turned around and parried with its right arm. Slash! Gustav's claws smoothly cut through it, causing the silhouette to become limbless. It growled out in pain again as it lost its second arm. I can heal back if only I reach the darkness, the silhouette thought as it turned around to run. Still, the moment it did that, Gustav threw out his right fist coated in flames and silver-colored energy. Bam! Plush! Gustav's fist penetrated through the back of the silhouette and came out through the front of its chest. It was still blazing with flames burning through the chest of the silhouette. Chapter 258. Gustav retracted his fist quickly before the flames could die out, and black blood started pouring out of the fist-size hole. The silhouette stared at the hole in its chest with a confused expression before falling face flat to the ground. So, this is how it ends? The silhouette had thought the situation would end with it tasting Gustav's flesh, but to its disappointment, it tried biting off more than it could chew. Gustav raised his foot and brought it down on the head of the silhouette. Bang! Its head burst apart with black liquid flying in all directions. The insatiable silhouette ended up dying with a mind full of confusion. It died without understanding Gustav's existence. Gustav had made use of the coat of flames that poisoned the surroundings with an airborne poison. This helped in weakening the silhouette. Not only had the brightness of the flames helped in restricting the silhouette abilities, but it also helped in poisoning it. Without coat of flames, Gustav would have spent way longer time fighting it, and he wouldn't have been able to escape without grievous injuries if he managed to defeat it. The silhouette was stronger than he was at the moment, and was also an alien. The system notified him of it the moment he arrived on the scene. SSHHHH. Huh! Gustav noticed the silhouette's corpse was disintegrating into smoke after its death. Gustav quickly squatted and placed his hand on the corpse, trying to see if he could acquire its power. Instead, his hand got burnt due to the high temperature of the corpse. He quickly retracted his hand, but when he noticed no system notification, he placed his hand on the corpse again. Gustav bore the pain and started stabbing his claws into different parts of the silhouette's body, hoping a system notification would pop up, but that didn't happen. In a few more seconds, the body had almost disintegrated into black smoke completely. Gustav retracted his hand and sighed. What a waste, he said internally before turning around after the body disappeared completely. Gustav felt something and turned around. He stared at the spot where the silhouette's body had disintegrated. A small round stone could be seen in the middle of the ash body outline on the ground. Gustav squatted and picked it up. You have acquired an Eulevanturian gem, the core of an Eulevanturia. An alien species said to evolve by feeding on other beings with power. Evolution stage 5. Gustav stared at the system notification with an expression of understanding. So, this is why. If its core kept evolving, would it have acquired enough power to escape from the ruins? Gustav wondered. Definitely not. I'm sure the MBO already knows this too. They wouldn't let it run amok if they didn't know how to catch it if it managed to acquire enough power. Gustav answered his question himself. Anyways, in taking this, Gustav put the core in his storage device and turned around. Glade was nowhere to be found. Smirk. As expected, he made use of the moment I was distracted to leave. Gustav already knew this would happen. In fact, he had hoped this would happen because he already had a plan in mind. God Eyes has been activated. Gustav's irises turned green and scarlet as he activated God Eyes. Life sign tracking has been activated. Gustav's eyes instantly changed color, becoming bright gold. It was glowing so much that it looked like two small fireflies flying side by side in the distance. Gustav pictured a life sign in his mind that looked like plus, and what appeared in his line of sight was a different environment from the one he was currently in. Earlier, when Gustav was watching Glade and the silhouette battle using God Eyes, he saved Glade's life sign. Now he was currently connecting to her life sign and seeing from her point of view. Glade was obviously in motion due to the constant up and down movement, as well as the stalactites being dodged and passing by the sides. Glade was currently moving very fast in an area that had lots of greenish-looking stalactites and stalagmites. Gustav kept watching through her line of sight, wanting to see where she was headed to. Glade felt weird as she moved, but looking around, she didn't notice anything, so she decided not to bother. She kept running, and after leaving the area, she went through another passageway. Even though his energy was being depleted, Gustav had to keep watching so he would discover the location of the person he was dealing with. If he had decided to surrender and follow Maltida, he would have discovered the place. Still, he wouldn't know what to expect, so that would have been a truly foolish decision. This way, he could gather more information without being noticed. After another 20 minutes went by, Glade arrived in a particular massive passageway. This one was the biggest so far that Gustav had seen, and it also looked familiar to him. Glade moved forward more and turned towards the left when she got to a particular place. A large wall could be seen when she passed through the exit point of the passageway. It was literally a dead end. However, Gustav could see about 2 more participants walking out with purplish glowing eyes like Maltida and Glade. This was also when he noticed the huge hole in the wall where a square-shaped rock was positioned. Zwienin! 2 eyes suddenly opened up on the rock, and they also glowed purple like the others. Glade knelt on the ground the moment those eyes were opened. So that is it? So much different from what I envisioned. Gustav stared at the rock. He immediately understood that it was the reason for the current situation. What he wanted to know at the moment was the plan of this rock being. You have proven to be quite useful. The same voice that was heard from the mouths of Maltida and Glade could be heard coming from the rock. Too bad you couldn't get him for me. He is a bit too much to handle. Chapter 259. However, he is better than I expected. I never thought I would find someone with multiple abilities. The information you all have on him doesn't do justice to his capabilities. Gustav couldn't hear audio when tracking life signs, but surprisingly this one was heard. Gustav wondered why he would be able to hear the voice of the rock being, and the only sensible reason he could come up with was the fact that it spoke to the minds. Gustav still couldn't hear Glade speaking, but every time the rock stated something, he would hear it. There is no need for worries. He is my ticket out of here, he shall be mine. Go and gather more of those stones for me. I want everything to be prepared for my freedom the moment I have him in my possession. Gustav could more or less guess what Glade was saying from the rock's reply. And from what he had gathered so far, this rock being needed him and some unknown stones which Gustav assumed were the grand stones, to escape from here. It didn't make sense to Gustav. Why must it be him specifically? Do not worry about that, they should be arriving at his location any time from now. The instant Gustav heard those words, he suddenly felt a sense of foreboding. His perception picked up on something in his surroundings, and he instantly deactivated life signs tracking. Gustav's vision returned back to his surroundings, and he stared at the passageways up ahead and behind. This particular area was very large, but in front and behind were more than 7 passageways in total. Tap, 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 tap. Multiple feet tapping on the surface of the ground could be heard coming from every one of these passageways. It was obvious that a crowd of people were headed this way. 7, 12, 19, 22, 29. Gustav made use of his great hearing ability to count the number of people headed this way. They hadn't entered his range of perception, so he could only use his hearing. So many. Gustav could already tell that they were coming for him. The instant one of them entered his range of perception, he scanned them with his senses and confirmed that they were indeed participants. Underscore 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 energy. 1200/2125 underscore 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 underscore. Gustav checked his remaining energy. I won't be able to go against so many with such low energy unless I fight without making use of powerful skills, he muttered with a contemplative look. Tap, 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 tap. The tapping sounds kept getting louder. It was obvious they were getting closer. Some had even successfully passed through the passageway and were currently in the vicinity. In a few more seconds, waves and waves of participants started streaming out of the passageway and into the area. They arrived at the middle in no time and paused their movements after noticing that the area was empty. They all had purplish glowing eyes and were numbered in the 40s to 50s. Chatter. 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 Dash. The Great Lord said he would be here. Dash. This location is accurate, how come it's empty? Although they were all being mind-controlled, at the moment they could think for themselves. They were in control of their own body movement, however their minds were plagued with one thought, which was, to capture Gustav. Gustav, who was being sourced for, positioned himself in between two stalactites hanging from the ceiling area with his legs and arms tightly holding onto them both. He watched the crowd of participants from above with a look of astonishment. They had occupied almost every spot below due to their large number. Just how powerful must the rock mental capability be to mind control this amount of participants at the same time? Gustav felt the situation was a bit more dangerous than he thought. Not because of the large number of participants looking to abduct him, but because of the rock itself. There's still about 3 hours left before my stats return back to normal. I have to hide out for now till that time. Gustav didn't want to confront the rock as he was now. He had enough strength to hold on to these stalactites for 3 days if he wanted to, so staying up here wasn't a problem. The only thing he was currently worried about was Angie. He hoped she and Maltida had found a place to hide out. Gustav was currently naked as he held on to both stalactites. His skin tone had changed to match with the color of the stalactites. Even if any of the participants looked upwards, they wouldn't notice because he was currently like a chameleon blending in. Also, the way he positioned allowed more than half of his body to be blocked by the rocks in some angles. Or so he thought. Gustav suddenly felt a chill run down his spine and looked downwards towards the west. Glare! A pair of glowing blue eyes were staring in his direction, and the moment he looked down, their eyes connected. Oh well, shit, Gustav cursed internally as the female participant pointed in his direction. There he is! The entire crowd raised their heads to stare in Gustav's direction, but unlike the girls, some of them didn't notice anything. The distance from the ground to the ceiling area was big, so that made it harder for them to spot any difference. It was obvious that her eyes were special. A few participants who had very good perception were the ones who noticed that something was off with that particular spot. He's right there! The few that noticed it shouted out and started firing attacks at that spot. Underscore 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 underscore. In the secluded room where dignitaries gathered to watch the performance of the participants as well as converse about the observations gathered from seeing them perform, the room was currently giving off a somber vibe. The MBO higher-ups watched the projections in front with slightly confused expressions. The participants are going after one another now, ambushing others to steal grandstones. However, it doesn't look natural in any way. One of them voiced out. Chapter 260. The ones we've seen so far had purplish glowing eyes and after a successful ambush head towards the same direction. Too bad we cannot observe them further due to transmission interference, but obviously there's something at play here. Another one of them voiced out again. I suspect a mind control, but our database doesn't mention anyone with that ability among the inmates. Participants with mind control related ability will not be able to perform on such a scale. Can you see that they are all headed towards a particular direction of the ruins in massive numbers? Everyone stared at the projections and observed that this was truly the case. About 4 different projections showed participants with purplish glowing eyes moving in groups in different locations through passageways. When the map of the ruins were displayed, it could be seen that they were all truly headed in the same direction, encircling it from different pathways like they were trying to trap something. They watched the projections and instructed the ace controlling the invisible cams to follow the participants. However, the further they went, the worse the transmission became. It would seem that the area they were headed for had a higher concentration of energy. I suggest we send a person down there to investigate these strange occurrences. We cannot interfere with the test phase, we have to let them handle whatever situations may arise within by themselves. That is how we can know if they truly belong here. And what happens if the situation is beyond their capability? The research team has properly investigated the ruins before the start of the 5th phase, so I believe candidates with potential should be able to handle it. The higher-ups argued back and forth on the decision to make about the current situation. Great Commander Cheyenne had a contemplative look on his face as he leaned forward and placed his hands that were clasped together on the table. I agree with them, Great Commander Cheyenne. We could send someone in with the command to not interfere. Young Joe finally picked his side. Great Commander Cheyenne still sat with a contemplative expression on his face. The room turned silent because they could tell that he was about to make a critical decision. Those 4 geezers left observation of the last phase to me without any plans of attending. Now I have to make all the decisions myself. Great Commander Cheyenne gave a low sigh as he thought. We shall send an official to go in and observe the happenings with the command to not interfere. The official will only interfere if the danger of the situation is beyond the level that the participants can handle. Great Commander Cheyenne voiced out. The official will infiltrate the ruins as a new inmate. The only issue now is who to send, Grand Commander Cheyenne added. Well, Great Commander Cheyenne, I have someone in mind, young Joe said with a straight face, but internally he was grinning. This way, his secrets will be revealed to me, young thought. Oh, and who would that be, young Joe? Great Commander Cheyenne asked while running his fingers through his yellow beards. His N. Before young Joe could complete his sentence, a loud sound of collision was heard. Bang! The door was blasted to the side by a foot. A blue-colored female shoe with heels was the first thing that was noticed since it was responsible for blasting the door to the side. Step! 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 A lady with beautiful ash-colored hair and an aloof expression walked in. She was dressed in a knee-length red gown with a long green jacket draped around her shoulders. This person happened to be Miss Amy. What is she doing here? This was the thought of everyone as she walked in. I'm so sorry, sirs, Moss, she got in before I was able to stop her. A male official ran in behind her, begging. Not to worry, you can go back to your work position. Grand Commander Cheyenne stopped the official before he could continue speaking. What did you say about sending someone in? Miss Amy voiced out while standing in front of the huge table. Young Joe squinted his eyes while staring at Miss Amy. An unexpected variable has appeared. Pa. Bam. Pa. Bang. Boom. Swee-eye. Bang. Sounds of attacks rang out as a battle between a single person and a group of participants played out in a particular part of the ruins. Gustav was currently surrounded by numerous participants being mind-controlled by the rock. Earlier, after finding out his location, Gustav had to jump down from the rock due to the bombardment of attacks. The moment he did that, he knew he'd have to face this mob. His body was no longer looking camouflaged, so they could see him unless he repeatedly made changes to blend into the environment while fighting them, which is impossible. Their objective was to bring him to the rock being. So, they went full force on him according to its will. Gustav had to fight this mob without the intention to kill. This is because he felt killing this number of participants would cause some issues for him in the future, especially when they were mind-controlled. This didn't necessarily make him pull his punches because his stats were still halved. Bang! Bang! Gustav blocked 2 full-powered attacks with his arms crossed from a participant with a massive build. He slid back a bit, and used the force to do a flip, kicking 2 participants in the face that way. Pooh! Gustav spat out blood towards the side and cleaned his lips before leaping upwards to dodge the attacks headed for his direction. He threw out his fists and legs, repeatedly slamming into the participants surrounding him and putting them out of commission. Every one of his kicks and punches sent them flying. However, he was also on the receiving end of some attacks. Due to the numbers, he wasn't able to dodge them all. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.